It's that time of the week. Yes, this week's Cult Movie Show, your weekly look at cult movies. Please welcome your hosts, Warren and Velvet.
Yes, it is that time of the week again. Welcome to podcast number 37 of the Cult Movie Show with myself, Warren, and of course, sitting beside me virtually in the virtual studio, as always, is the charming, wonderful, and intelligent Velvet. How are you today, Velvet?
Oh, I am in such good mood, and I'm so excited about today. So as usual, we're going to review some interesting films. Even one of them, I managed to sneak in my favorite. I guess it must be some subconscious fetish of mine, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. But let me just say, we got two major cult classic films. We've got a short film. Why only two movies? Because we're actually moving from the virtual studio to the virtual coffee shack. See, I can't even talk. I'm so excited.
Coffee shop, Velvet.
I like the coffee shack.
Coffee shack. Hey, I'm from the South. We have shacks. It kind of looks like an outhouse, but they actually serve coffee there.
So,
all joking aside, we have a guest, Rena Riffel. Rena Riffel, actress, dancer, model, and filmmaker, director, editor. This woman does everything, and she's gracing us with her time today. Hey, Rena, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here on the virtual show.
It's been an absolute dream. I mean, we've wanted you on for quite a while. We've actually talked about a couple of your movies on this show, and we will in fact be talking about some more in the future as well. It's just we are so honoured that you're sort of here with us virtually anyway today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
And I suppose we should sort of start and just, let everybody know. I mean, your collection of work is huge.
Yes.
I mean, you would have, more than 50 or more titles under your belt? Would that be right?
Oh, yeah, there's probably even more that just, like on the IMDb that aren't even listed. But Yeah, I've been in a ton of films and TV and all kinds of projects and music videos and I've had a long career though. It's been going on for like over 25 years.
That's amazing. I mean, because so many people are struggling to work, and you're always busy from what I can tell. Like since I'm guessing, I mean, I'm only going off of IMDb here, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been acting since at least 1988, and it looks like almost every year you have a project or a few going on. That's pretty impressive. So what's the secret of having a long-term working career? Do you know?
Oh, I don't really know. Just hanging in there, I guess. And you just keep going.
I
lived in LA I lived in LA for such a long time, but then I moved out of LA to make my own films. And that's when I just started focusing more on writing and directing my own movies.
That's interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say
that. I stopped working as much as an actress, even though I know on IMDb it lists a lot of films that I'm acting in, and a lot of those are these ongoing films that it takes them a while to finish.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, some of them for, I suppose, some of our cult sort of movie listeners. I mean, if we obviously want to start to talk about your own personal projects in a moment, but some of them. I mean, you were in the original Showgirls. You were in Trasharella. You were in one of the Candyman films. I think it was Candyman 3. But you were also in Mulholland Drive and also a very, I think, a really interesting film, Breast Men, which was not what people think it is. It's actually a very
deceiving. You know,
it's very deceiving. Yeah, it's an amazing story, actually.
Very good. Yeah.
And, so you've done, so much stuff, but I just have to ask you about this. One of the funniest things I think I've seen you in was the episode, I think it was for the Comedy Channel, I'm not 100% sure, a TV show called Fishmaster. Do you remember this?
You saw Fishmasters? Wow.
Yeah. And
That's amazing.
the episode that you star in it's called Bikini Girl, and it is hilarious.
Yeah, I love that.
That
was a while back. I helped write that with Carl Edge, and we're still in touch. He's my friend.
Cool.
Yeah, and gosh, we did that back in, I think I actually did that before Showgirls. So it's kind of like my life. I measure it by what happened before Showgirls and then after. Because it's changed so much. And, I'm pretty sure that I did that right before Showgirls happened, like in maybe 1993. But then I did another episode with Fishmasters as well. But that's a great show.
Very funny show. Very funny show.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So we don't just want to talk about Showgirls because, as you said, you did stuff before Showgirls and after Showgirls. But I just want to say to our audience, for those of you who are just now learning about Rena Riffel and you're going to be addicted to her after this episode, if you've seen Showgirls, you'll recognize Rena Riffel from her role as Penny. But you also made an unofficial sequel to Showgirls called Pennies from Heaven that we actually reviewed on the show. We reviewed that on episode 32, and we also had a special guest on that episode, Ethan Martin from Eyes of the Roshi. So what I noticed from Pennies from Heaven, Rena, is that you have great comedic timing. You're really funny.
Oh, thank you. It's a very dark comedy, I would say.
Oh, big time. But we're warped people. We love that.
Yeah, thank you.
So some of the jokes in that are fantastic. Sorry, I cut you off, Rena. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I wrote the script and I wrote the jokes, and I know that, it was just, like a melodramatic, dark comedy, basically.
Well, there's a lot of people, I know I've spoken to a number of people who loved the original movie and then saw Pennies from Heaven. And I think one of the things that a lot of people don't get the humour in Pennies from Heaven. I mean, I have to admit, when I started watching it, I wasn't 100% sure where it was going to go. And then suddenly, about 15 minutes in, it was like a light bulb went off, on top of my head, that cartoon type image. And I thought, I get it. I get what she's trying to do. And I fell in love with it.
Yeah, it's really fun. And we actually watched the extended version. We saw the 2.5-hour version. So if you're ready for some laughs, people, sit down and grab a snack and be ready to be in for the night, because that's it. but you do actually have a shorter version. Yeah, that's all. I mean, that's it. You're going to be laughing. You're going to be drinking. You're going to be having a good time. But you do actually have a shorter version now. Is that right, Rena?
Yes. Yeah, I cut it down to about an hour and a half. And it's called Showgirls 2: The Cut.
I love that.
I love that.
I love that.
And I actually the first edit was actually 3 hours. I even had an edit, the first assembly of it, that I think it was about 5 hours. And it's because I shot my entire script. So, I didn't know it was going to translate into that. And I just, we just kept shooting. And I was just, I wasn't able to edit while we were shooting. So I had no idea about the length. But the shorter edit now, I was able to use all the scenes that I deleted. And so those are all in the shorter one. So there's a lot of different footage. But I cut out a lot of, I don't know why. I mean, it was just a choice I made in the moment, but I tried to make it a little more serious, and I cut out a lot of the punchlines with, the comedic lines that are in there. So I think that version is a little more serious, but it's still, like absurd. The whole thing is pretty absurd. But yeah. So, and there was someone, I forget who it was. But anyway, they were saying, because I thought, okay, some people are saying they love this version, the shorter version, and this is the one they wish that I would have released in the first place. But then someone else said that they liked the longer version. So, I don't know.
You can't make everybody happy. Now there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. There's something for everybody now. There's two versions.
Yeah. Two versions with different scenes. And in the short edit, the whole movie was a lot of work, but I basically fixed the sound, because that was one thing in the longer version. The sound quality was just kind of bad, I guess, but I was able to fix that in the shorter one.
Okay.
So they can, but I embraced, all the flaws that happen in the 2.5 hour version. I liked that about it, because it was more gritty and, so I just went with it.
Look, I have to admit, I love the 2.5 hour version, though. I mean, I adored it. I could have sat there for the 4 hour version if you hadn't given that to us, because it was a bit like, I remember many years ago in the 80s, Germany released a telemovie called Das Boot. And it was, I think it's a 5 hour long movie. It's a real haul.
Oh my God.
Yeah, to actually get through. And I've seen both the 5 hour, and I've also seen the 1.5 US American TV cut. And I've got to admit, I preferred the 5 hour version.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense too, because I've seen the 2.5 hour version of Pennies from Heaven, and I thought that was a lot of fun. So I'm curious to see your new edit, because as you said, you not only, had to cut a lot of stuff, you put a lot of new stuff in. You put in a lot of unused footage. So I'm like, wow. So I thought I was going to be missing the story, but there's going to be a whole lot of stuff I didn't even get to see the first time. So I think that's actually, it really is kind of something for everybody, because you made a funny version, you made a slightly more serious version, you got the longer version, you got the shorter version. So I think that's really you're versatile, though. I think that really is typical for you, because you're very versatile, because you don't just do one thing. You don't just act, you dance, you model, you make movies, but then you edit them as well. I mean, you're a busy lady. Like, what do you like doing best? Do you have one thing? Do you have one thing that you would like to do, or that you, like, if you had to choose one thing, like, I can only direct, I can only act, I can only, model, I can only dance, would you be able to pick one thing? And if yes, what would you pick? It's a hard question.
I would pick, no, I know what I would pick at this point. I mean, of course my answer would have been different, years, I don't know, 5 years ago, but, I enjoy or making films. I enjoy writing and making the actual film, editing. I love the technical aspect, and just learning all that. And it's very challenging, but I actually just enjoy it, because, I mean, when you're editing and dealing with all the formats and all that, there's just so much that comes up, and you're just problem solving constantly, but I actually like that. And so that's what I love to do, and I love writing the script and thinking of the idea. And I think my least favorite part is probably going out and just trying to show up to the location and shoot it, just because it's doing independent films is just so much effort. It's exhausting, and you're like, oh, I hope everyone shows up, and so that's kind of the hardest part. I love when I have the footage and then I'm editing. I love doing the sound mixing as well, and so that's my answer.
Oh, fantastic.
Excellent.
Before, actually, because we want to talk about, some of your other projects, but just before we do, I suppose this question has to be asked, and that is that, do you get stopped in the street by people sort of saying, it's Penny, it's Penny, it's Penny? Because, the original, Showgirls is such a famous film now. It's written, obviously it didn't go down very well when it was first released, but it found a new audience over the, 20 odd years. And now it's just a huge cult classic.
Right. But
Yeah.
you do get recognized.
I get, I get recognized probably every time I go out of the house, which is not very often. But, I'm a homebody, and and it's always just I love meeting the fans of Showgirls, and they're so nice, and so it feels good, But I also get recognized for Mulholland Drive. But
yes,
I notice
cool.
It'll be, like when, and I just had, such just that one scene in that film, but people seem to really love that one as well. I know it's not as big as Showgirls, but
but that's definitely a cult
but I
classic
get recognized
too.
in that when, but it's like if I'm out jogging or something and I look a mess, then they're like, oh, you were in Mulholland Drive. And then when I have my hair done and I have some little makeup on, then it's, oh, you were Showgirls, Yeah, it's funny that it works out that way.
Well, one thing I have to admit, and I think a lot of people would love to know your secret, and that is that you don't age. Like no. you look at the same now as you did in your 20s. It's like
a birthday. Oh, but thank you.
I just wondered, do you have No, I was just wondering, do you have a portrait of Dorian Gray in your attic? Because you look amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Well, I know people, when they see me and they're, say, oh, you were in Showgirls, you look the same. And they ask me that sometimes, and then I'm taking them seriously. And then I'm thinking, wait, that was so corny of me to say, but they want to know my secret. And I figure, well, my only secret is I sleep a lot. Like I sleep in way too late and so sleep till noon and drink red wine and work out. And I guess somehow it preserved me. I don't know.
Well, I have to admit, drinking red wine is definitely a topic close to my heart. Do you have a favourite drop?
A favorite type of red wine?
Yeah.
I go through different favorites, and I'll have one, and I'll just keep getting that same one. So this month, my favorite, it's this wine called Dark Horse, and it's the Zinfandel, and it's from Trader Joe's, and I don't know if you guys have Trader Joe's in Australia,
but it's an organic food store, organic grocery store.
Yeah, it's more on the healthy side. Some things are organic, some aren't, but yeah, so that's my favorite wine of the month.
Nice. Dark Horse. There we go. So Dark Horse, if you're looking, exactly. So Dark Horse, if you're looking for a spokesmodel, I'm sure Rena Riffel's willing to talk to you.
I definitely would. They're a California wine, but I actually don't know if they're, where exactly in California. I didn't it didn't say on the bottle because I was telling my mom about it the other night. She goes, "Oh, is this from Napa?" And I was like, you know what? It doesn't even say. It says California. But yeah.
The main thing is you like it. That's all that matters.
There you go.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. I get so sick of people that say, oh, you can't do this, or you have to do this, or this is what you should drink, or this is what you should think, or this is what... No, just be who you are. If you enjoy it, it's good.
Right.
Yeah. What wine do you like?
Myself, okay, now I'm going to just contradict myself. I mean, it's really crazy because most Australians drink Australian wine, but I'm actually
I love Australian wines.
Oh, they're wonderful, but I'm actually very partial to Bordeaux and Côte d'Rône from France, I have to admit.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Very nice.
Nice.
I like that.
Yes, with a bit of brie cheese and yes, I'm quite content.
There we go. I like that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Now, the other thing too is that do you have, like yourself? I mean, we're talking about favourite wines and so forth, but obviously because you are making your own movies, do you have movie styles or genres that you yourself adore? Like, if there is a certain genre movie that comes out, you say to yourself, I must see that, or do you not actually see a lot of films because you're so busy making your own?
Well, a little of both, actually. So, I really like, I like art films and films that are different, maybe more experimental, and films that are older, like from the 60s or 70s, 50s. But yeah, I like films that take a risk and just aren't like the normal, way of editing, where there's something different, and then that inspires me.
Oh, fantastic. I think you'd love one of the movies we're going to be talking about on this podcast, actually. It's a certain movie called, shall I announce it?
Go for it.
We're going to be talking, one of the movies we're talking about on this podcast is going to be Picnic at Hagging Rock from the 1970s, which is a movie which shocked so many people because it doesn't have an ending. It's
I like that. Yeah.
And also it's beautifully shot. I don't want us to spoil our review, but yeah, definitely. You should check that out, Rena. It's called Picnic at Hagging Rock. It's actually an Australian film from 1971, and it's an Australian cult classic. Okay. So yeah, definitely check that out.
Oh, that sounds great. I will.
Yeah, we'll be tweeting you during the week, so we'll spam you a little bit. We'll be like, Rena, check out this movie we're talking about. So that, because every time it took me forever to get the title of that movie, because every time people would say it, I'd be like,
I already can't.
What? I'm hearing Picnic. What else is it?
I'm already, yeah, me too. I remember the picnic part, but I'm going to have you guys remind me, later.
Yeah, we'll hook you up. We'll help you out with that.
I'll Google it or something.
Yeah, the interesting thing too is I've actually been to Hagging Rock, the real place.
And he made it back alive.
And I made it back
alive. You'll get the joke once you see the movie. Yeah, you'll get the joke once you see the movie. Warren made it back alive.
But I suppose we should ask about, some of your sort of newer projects. And one of the ones that, I know that you're very proud of is Astrid, a self-portrait. Would you like to tell everyone a bit about that?
Yeah, that's my newest film that I released. And let's see, I shot it as the character. So it's kind of I don't know how to describe it. It's almost in a found footage genre a little bit. but it's all these pieces from this character, Astrid, and she was trying to make her own film, and she wanted to make an art film, but then all these things behind the scenes, they get revealed about her 7 marriages, and all of her husbands are dead. She's widowed 6 times, except for the last husband. And he wasn't actually the last husband. Only one husband survived. And so she calls on him to be her assistant and help her make this movie. Mm-hmm. But it just, everything kind of goes wrong for her, at least. And so it like kind of leads to her demise. But I loved making this film. It was so much fun. And my friend Gregory Heath, he's my childhood friend. So he was doing some cinematography, and I asked him to do it with me, and he also acts in the movie. And it's a dark comedy as well. But it's an art film, and I really like it. It premiered at Egyptian Theater here in Hollywood.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, and so I only showed it that one time. So, I have to get out there and show it some more. But at this point, it's on Amazon.
Excellent. So
it's very film noir. Would that be right?
Yeah, it is.
I love film noir.
Exactly. Yeah,
and Warren and I. Oh, sorry.
Too. Oh, it's okay. I was just saying it has a vintage feel. It's I don't know exactly when it takes place, but it has kind of like a early 60s vibe to it. Uh-huh. With my clothing and my costumes and all that.
No, definitely recommend, everybody to hunt this down. I mean, basically all of your personal projects, they are available on Amazon, aren't they?
Yes.
So
even the Showgirls 2, The Cut, is on Amazon. And Astrid's Self-Portrait.
That's no.
I definitely.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to watch that because that looks. First off, Warren and I love found footage, so we want to see that. And then we love you, and you're in it, so we want to see that. But yeah, it looks amazing. And just from the trailer, just from the trailer alone, there was one part where I actually laughed, and I thought to myself, she's done it again. She's definitely snuck in some of that dark humor that you have such good comedic timing for. Because just for people who haven't seen the trailer for Astrid's Self-Portrait, there's a great scene in the trailer where there's a man talking about Astrid, and he has a wreath. Think of a Christmas wreath, but it's made out of film, like, 35 millimeter film, little bits of, electronics. Got a full-on wreath made out of this film. And the man says, here we have an example of film as actual art.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Yeah. Oh, that is Philippe Mora, who is from Australia. And he's a very prolific, famous director. So he's my friend, and I've worked with him many times. But I grabbed him in and made him be an actor.
Excellent.
Yeah. I was actually going to say, because your writing is really good. Have you ever been tempted to actually write, as in write a book, not just write scripts?
Oh, that's perfect that you would mention that.
Wow.
Because yes, and I'm working on a science fiction novel right now, and
wow,
I'm just trying to finish it, and so I really want to do that. I love writing scripts, and I don't know, it's easy for me, and I just love it. But writing a novel, it's very different for me, just the format. But I'm trying to let myself be experimental with it as well. So so that's in the works, and I'm hoping to finish it soon, actually.
Oh, fantastic.
I'll send it
Excellent.
to you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that'd be amazing.
It's going to be a novella. Not
cool.
very long.
No, that's cool. That's so cool. Well, now you can add, author to your credits. That's right. You got your hand in everything. That's really cool. Well, you're going to be soon. That's amazing. Good. Thank you for sharing that with us.
That is brilliant. And the other thing too is that I have to. This is totally off topic, but your brother posts some fantastic surfing pics on Facebook.
Oh, you follow my brother Todd? You're friends with him?
We've actually been. This sounds. You know how somehow you become friends because you're friends with somebody else, sort of thing. And we actually became Facebook friends. I think about 3 years ago, to be honest. And we don't really talk or anything, but he does. He posts some of the coolest stuff. He really does.
Yes, yeah, and his sunsets.
Yeah.
Pictures of the sunsets and the surfing. I know. Yeah, he's amazing. And he's posting those great pictures. It's his passion. Now, I mean, he's a musician. He has a new album that he just released as well. And, but yeah, his photos, I keep telling him, you got to put this together in a coffee table book or something,
Oh,
cool.
Definitely.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to anybody, check out his photography. It's just fantastic.
That's cool.
Thank you. I'm going to tell him that.
Yeah. No, I mean it from
Todd
the heart.
Riffel.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's so nice. I know, it's amazing. We're always, my mom and dad, we're like blown away. We're like, wow, look at that. But he's got a great Instagram too, where he posts all these pictures.
So definitely everybody follow his Instagram. You'll love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really will. Because that was the it just suddenly just went out of my mind. That's right. Sorry, I have those moments sometimes. I'm getting old. He actually contributed some of the music to Showgirls too, didn't he?
My brother?
Yeah. Was that right?
You know what? I think he did. I can't even remember now, but I'm sure I put some of his music in it. I mean, that he did music for Trasharella as well. Okay. And I
didn't realize that.
Yeah, he did some of those songs. I did as well. But then the Showgirls 2, The Cut, I have a lot of new music in that.
Cool.
I kind of redid all the music, and I can't remember if I used my brother's songs in the shorter edit. But John Collins, who's from Australia, he wrote all that music for the Showgirls 2, The Cut.
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Is there, just quickly, is there a project that you probably can't answer this, but so forget about something that's maybe in the works that you really can't give away. But is there something in your mind, some project that you just are saying to yourself, I must get this story up? Like, is there something that in your mind you just will never be happy until you've made?
Yes, you read my mind. I was about to ask you just the same thing, Rena. So times two.
Good. Well, I mean, yeah, I have a new story, a film story that I want to make, and I want it to be actually not comedic, if I can possibly pull that off. It's actually a challenge, but just something very serious and a little bit influenced by Antonioni, like just. Kind of like how I did Astrid, but just moments. And I have some of it shot already, but at this point it's called Abandoned, and that's the next thing I'm working on. So I'm just trying to get it together, and like I was saying before, like get my energy up to go out there and set up the camera and shoot it. But I want it to be like, I want it to be even better than my other films I've made. So I just, I want to bring things to that point and just, try my best and just have it be very professional, but also something that, would like win a film festival because it's actually a really serious and beautiful film.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, I want to go more towards that direction. So a little bit, even with Astrid, I still had like one foot in the campy kind of, dark comedy aspect, but it is very film noir, like you said. But yeah, so I just want to like go to that next level.
I think you can do it. You're an actress, damn it. You know how to channel your emotions. No, but all joking aside, I think that sounds amazing. I know you don't want to tell us too much since you're still working on it, but is there a certain genre that you would be able to put it in? Is it going to be a horror? Is it going to be a thriller? Is it drama? I mean, are you able to say?
Oh, yeah. No, I think it would be, it's definitely an art film, the way it is at this point, but it would be a drama. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know if I would ever be able to do something that's just so straight ahead drama, because there are things about it that are a little bit more, my vision for it anyway is a little bit more artsy, and it's still going to have that, that pop of, something different. But it's a little bit more like the dialogue isn't as snappy at this point.
Okay.
It's just like I have the characters, they are talking about something completely different, but you understand that what they're really talking about, like the emotion and what has happened. And it's basically, I can tell you, it's about, there's a family and they were the lighthouse keepers, and their daughter leaves and she's just gone for years, and then she finally comes back.
Oh, wow.
And she has a sister, and then it just gets revealed, kind of like how I did with Astrid, but everything gets revealed about just this, very intense backstory. And, there's like the sibling rivalry going on, and the mother is going blind.
Wow.
A lot of drama. And so this character that comes back, she's dealing with, did she make the right decision to go to Europe and see the world and just abandon her family? And so, that's the premise. And then there's an ending that I can't tell you.
Of course.
Right, yeah.
Of course.
Now we have to see the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I have, like, that's my next one I want to do. So I'm just hoping I can pull it together.
Do you have a location in mind for the lighthouse setting? Is that going to be a soundstage or CGI, or do you have an actual location for a lighthouse that you have in mind that you're able to share if you can? Because I'm intrigued by lighthouses because they're creepy as fuck and they're beautiful as hell. So it's like
exactly.
That's going to be amazing atmosphere. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know that's
my question.
Yeah, I love lighthouses too, and that inspired. That was one of the first things with the story idea, that I wanted to use a lighthouse. And there's a lighthouse up in in Big Sur, San Simeon area, and I'm hoping to use that one.
Okay, cool.
Oh wow, that is. It just sounds amazing. I've got to admit that there is this love affair of lighthouses, though, isn't there, amongst people? I mean, I know my parents live in a small sort of coastal town. It's like actually a surf town, and they have their own lighthouse, and they actually live about 100 meters from the lighthouse.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, maybe
There you go.
I'll have to go down there and shoot it then.
Oh, please do.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, Warren was just like, hey, Mom, Dad, Rena's going to borrow your lighthouse for her movie, okay? Don't charge her anything, just let her make her movie. That would be cool.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And then Warren would be like, I know that lighthouse.
Yeah, like in 2 years from now, you'll be like, didn't I mention that on the podcast?
Like, you heard it here first.
Listen. Yeah.
Oh, dearie me.
Is it an old lighthouse or is it newer? Or
It's sort of, I think they built it in turn of the century, last century.
Oh, wow.
So it'd be about 100 years old, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But there's not a lot of them left in Australia. They sort of just get, torn down because they're not really needed these days with, modern technology and so forth. So they're amazing when they still exist.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love lighthouses. I went to one, I think, oh gosh, I can never remember these names, but I think it was called Point Ray. I'm saying that wrong maybe, but it's up above San Francisco, and it was just beautiful on a cliff. But it's all for tours now. I don't think it's actually working.
Okay.
But,
yeah.
Yeah. But I love lighthouses.
That's good. Yeah, that's going to be amazing. We can't wait to see that movie.
No, really looking forward to that. So look, we have kept you way over time, far longer than we actually said we would.
Oh.
So we thank you, sort of so much for that. We have to tell everybody that, please get onto Amazon and grab Rena's work because you won't be disappointed. She creates fantastic movies. So,
thank you.
So please go there and, and check them out. And also, check out some of the back catalogue if you haven't seen it. Rena, whether it be in some of the earlier work as an actress or, of course, in her later work as, well, basically everything, producer, writer, director.
And soon to be author.
Yes.
Soon to be author.
One-woman show.
Amazing.
So please check all that out. Is there anything that you want to sort of, plug, websites, social media and so forth, Rena?
Oh, I spend most of my time with social media on my Instagram. So it's just Rena Riffel there on Instagram. So please, follow me.
So
excellent.
I recommend it to everybody because I actually do follow Rena on Instagram. So I recommend everybody goes and does that.
Here's a helicopter. We're lucky that didn't happen that often.
See, people thought we were joking about the coffee shack. It exists. This is really happening.
I'm sitting out in Larchmont Village right now. So, but on Twitter, it's Cinema Rena is my Twitter account. So if you want to follow me there too. Yeah, that's about it. I have Facebook as well.
No, don't give that out. Don't give that out. No, you deserve your privacy. Don't give that out.
You deserve to have some privacy.
That's right.
Privacy, yeah, you can have some privacy. We'll let you have a little bit. So.
Thank you.
So look, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Rena. It really has, and we thank you so much for finding time out of your very busy schedule.
Oh, thank you both. And this was super fun. Thank you. It's been a pleasure for me too.
Yeah. Excellent.
Oh, thank you
for sharing
so
your
much.
future plans with us. We're really excited about your future projects, and we can't wait to read your books and see your movies.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to be back with, yes, you know what time. Yep. It's short movie time. So we'll be right back.
It's time to get excited, short film fans. It's mini movie review time.
Yes, it is mini movie review time, and I love this little segment. So what have you discovered for us this week, Velvet?
I've actually had this little mini movie on the back burner in case of emergencies, and this week was one of those in case of emergencies where all of a sudden I realized, oh, we haven't selected a mini movie for the week. And so I went and looked at my back burner, and I lifted up the lid on the pot, and I'm like, oh, there's a movie in there. Okay, good. We're set. So I want to say thank you to our Twitter follower. You know who you are. We'll tweet you during the week and thank you again.
Oh no, we can name them. We can name them. Let's give them a shout out.
This is at Saint_Clinton. So Saint Clinton, thank you so much for recommending this mini movie for us. Since you recommended it, I've had it on the back burner and for such an occasion. So it's really super duper short.
And actually, and before we go any further, can I just say they also do their own podcast. So you can check out their podcast as well. If you follow them on Twitter, you'll be able to find the podcast links. So shout out to St. Clinton.
So this is a really short. It's just like 1 second under 4 minutes, so 4 minutes short. It's called Survellance. It's also an Australian short. So it's silly, it's funny. It's definitely a little bit of social commentary on there. There's use of CG in this very little short. But basically it's about everybody's being surveilled by all these cameras all around, and people get sick of being, having their privacy invaded, so they shut off all the surveillance cameras. Well, the surveillant becomes cognizant, and it decides to take revenge.
Yes.
So what did you think of this short, Warren?
It's it's a very short. It's only 4 minutes, I think, and it's actually shot in a really interesting style. It's actually shot in a trailer style. So so when you watch it, you almost are saying to yourself, "Hang on, is this the movie or is this the trailer?" Like
I did the same thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting the way it's shot, but it actually works really well. The CGI is actually pretty good. I would have to say it's a fun little story. Basically talking about Big Brother, if you like, because we are these days. We can't go anywhere basically without being filmed. So it's interesting. And in this film, of course, the idea is that we've had enough and we've shut it off. But of course, we can't kill it. We can't stop it. Or can we? Is there actually a way to stop it? Can the human mind outthink the computer? And so it's really good. I really did like it. It's even though it is described a bit as a comedy, but I'd have to say it's the ending which is the comedy. There's it's not sort of comedy all the way through, but the very ending, that is comedy. And very simplistic, but I still think very well done.
Yeah, I feel bad that I don't have more information on this short because, like I said, I picked this up in a pinch. So all I have is the web address where you can currently view it. But throughout the week, I'll definitely get in contact with the actual filmmaker and tag them and let you guys know that we reviewed your short and we like it and that we're promoting it on our Twitter page. But it's called Survellance. It came out in 2014. And yeah, I'd have to agree with you, Warren. But honestly, even though you like a lot of people, because I've looked at comments and stuff surrounding this little short, a lot of people said what you said, the comedy's kind of tacked on at the end, but I find it funny all around. The whole thing that it's cognizant and it's saying, you guys shut me off, but I woke up, and it's just funny to me. And just this whole thing of that you're walking around and like, okay, it's already creepy enough when you think about, those situations that do happen in real life where somebody has somehow installed a surveillance camera and they're watching you. But what if the camera itself is just the stalker? What if there's no person behind that camera? The camera's just a fucking pervert that's following you around and watching your every move.
Yes.
It's doing it on its own. And it's funny and it's creepy at the same time. But Honestly, for how short this short is, I thought it was really creative. Because like you said, it is shot in a type of film trailer style. So like you said, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, is this actually a movie? Like, is this a trailer for the movie? Because it is at first done in a trailer style. But basically, it just tells you the whole story right up front. Okay, people were tired of cameras watching them. They shut the cameras off. The cameras got pissed off and turned themselves back on. And now they're getting revenge. So it kind of reminds me of like an updated version of like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Damn it, we're tired of being pizza sauce and spaghetti sauce and being splatted and eaten for your amusement. We're going to fight back now.
Well, yes, or even a bit more a comic version of Skynet.
Yes,
you know,
yes, like the Terminator,
in a sense. But no, definitely, I would say to people, it's worth seeing. And, you know, once again, 4 minutes out of your life. I mean, you know, it's not a big ask. It's not a big ask. And so do we have a web address for us or?
Yeah. So actually some of you will probably already know this website. It's called Snag Films. Like if you snag your clothes on a nail, snagfilms.com, and look for Survellance, snagfilms.com/film/title/surveillance. But yeah, if you search Surveillance, you'll be able to find it. It's the 4-minute Aussie flick. So you'll be able to watch it there.
Yes, so definitely check that out. All right, so I think it's time now for our first full movie review of the podcast, and so we'll take a quick break and come back, and we're staying in Australia again. I have to admit, Velvet, we've been doing a number of Australian films lately, actually.
Yeah, I think it's a law of attraction because I talk to you every week, so now like Australia's always in the back of my mind, so now I unconsciously seek out Australian stuff.
Okay, that's interesting.
I think that's what it is.
Well, this one we're about to talk about is a real cult classic.
Yes.
But we'll do it properly after the break. But it is in fact one that I actually thought about mentioning to you when we did our Australia Day special. And I just wasn't too sure because it's a bit like we said to Rena, for some people love this film, other people hate this film. So I wasn't too sure, but I'm really glad that you sort of said, oh, let's do it. So look, anyway, we're going to take
It's time.
Oh, no, we're not. That's the wrong. That's the wrong filler. So, anyway, we're going to take a quick break and then we will be back with our first review of podcast. Oh God, is it 37? I don't even remember.
Yes,
it's 37. Okay, there we go. We'll be right back. And we're back. And now, before we actually start talking about this film and the film to follow, we need to just put up a quick warning. And that is, we don't normally do this on this podcast. We don't give the endings away. We don't have spoilers. For these two movies, we are going to do that this week, simply because of when they were made. They're quite a number of decades old, and we had a discussion and we basically just thought, look, to talk about these two cult films, we really do have to give them away to actually get into them properly. So this is a heads up right now. If you want to watch the two films which are listed, you know, if you're listening to the podcast, you can see what the two films are. Then basically pause us now, go and watch those films, and then you can keep playing. All right. So this is a heads up. Nobody complain. No hate mail. No hate tweets, please. All right. Okay. So there we go. That's out of the way. Now, so our first movie this week is from Australia, as we said before, from 1975, called, is it 1975 or 1971? No,
1975.
1975, that's right. And it is called Picnic at Hagging Rock. Now, it's a very, very famous cult film from Australia. It got rave reviews in some countries and it was hated in others. And we'll sort of discuss the reason why in just a moment. Now, it was directed by Peter Weir, who, of course, is a very famous director. And it's set in Victoria, which is a southern state of Australia, on Valentine's Day, or at least that's when the story starts anyway,
right.
In the year 1900. So that's basically the birthday of, well, not the birthday of Australia, but 1900 was the first year Australia was a nation. So it's right at the start of Australia being Australia. Now, it's set in a girls' school and called the Appleyard School for Young Girls, I think, something along those lines, which is run by a Miss Applebaum, or Appleyard, I should say. Applebaum. Sorry. Yeah, Appleyard.
The name Appleyard just makes me laugh.
I know.
Okay.
Now, because it's Valentine's Day, they decide that they're going to send the girls off on a picnic at a local landmark, which is called Hagging Rock, which is just near a mountain in Victoria called Mount Macedon. And it was all actually, most of it anyway, was filmed at Hagging Rock. Other bits were filmed in other parts of the country. For instance, the school. The school is actually nowhere near Hagging Rock. It's in a different state. So they actually filmed it in two different areas. Now, while they are there, something very mysterious happens. Their watches stop. No one can explain what is going on. And 4 of the girls go off exploring this sort of monolith of rock, which is actually just the central core of a eroded volcano is actually what it is. And so anyway, they go exploring. Now, 3 of the girls will disappear and not come back. And one of the teachers, Miss McCraw, will also disappear for absolutely no reason. No one can work out what on earth has gone on. And so, of course, they come back to the school and a great search will ensue, basically, for these girls. What has happened to them? Have they been kidnapped? Have they been murdered? Are they simply lost? But the difference about this film, it's not just about the disappearance of these girls. This movie starts to move into the realms of the paranormal. And this is why it's got this sort of cult status. Now, it's actually taken from a book which was written in the 1960s by Joan Lindsay. And the book is going to be very crucial when we talk about this because we need to get to the end of this film to talk more about the author, Joan Lindsay. But what did you think of Picnic at Hagging Rock, Velvet?
So, yeah, I've been wanting to see this movie for quite a while, and I could never quite get the title. And the reason this movie ever came on my radar is one of my biggest guilty pleasures in life is paranormal stuff, cryptozoology, UFOs, strange disappearances, like that whole genre of weird shit. And whenever people would talk about disappearances, a lot of people would talk about Picnic at Hagging Rock. And I was always like, wait, what is this? What is this? And a lot of people think this is a true story. So one of our many spoilers for this episode, this is not a true story, people. Yes, people do go disappearing, but this movie is not about an actual disappearance at Hagging Rock. But I still wanted to see this movie when I realized that it has quite a cult following, and it did not disappoint. This is beautifully shot, well-paced. Even the cast is gorgeous. And the story is it's not quite predictable, and the ending is one of the endings you're either going to love it or hate it, and I really like this ending. So, yeah, I can see why this film has the cult status that it has.
Well, this is the thing. The thing about the ending of this movie is that it's taken directly, as we said, from the book by Joan Lindsay. Now, it's shot pretty much as the book tells the story, which is missing the final chapter. Now, this is the thing that pissed so many people off. The final chapter was never put into the book. And so, of course, when the movie was made, of course, it doesn't have the final chapter. So the issue a lot of people had, especially in the United States with this movie, was that they said it doesn't have an ending. How does it end? Like, there's no closure. What happened to the girls? What happened to the teacher? They disappeared, and we don't have an answer. And it sort of annoyed a lot of people. But then a lot of other people said, no, we love that because it's left us to make up our own conclusions, our own thoughts about what actually happened, to these girls. Was it paranormal? Was it, or was it just, an abduction, or did they simply just get lost and died in the wilderness? The thing is that, and we'll get to this a little bit later after we talk a bit more about what actually happens in the film. But the final chapter was actually released in the 1980s, a couple of years after Joan Lindsay's death. And it does answer all the questions. So you can actually find out exactly how this film does end according to the author. But even with the final chapter, it still does leave a lot of unopened or unanswered questions, it would have to be said. And it's, did you find this movie spooky, Velvet, or did you just find it sort of, the music is definitely very haunting, set against, the backdrop of all these giant rocks, with the girls all climbing through them and so forth. But, did you find it actually scary or not?
I didn't find it scary as in like bloody horror sense, but definitely it gave you that uneasy feeling, especially with the atmosphere of Hagging Rock. Like a lot of natural places, whether it be up in the mountains, the forest, any type of those natural settings, they always have that combination of beautiful and creepy. You always feel like there's something lurking around the corner that you can't see. You could get lost there. You could find a dead body. I mean, really, and this movie has that, especially once the girls go missing, it just amps it up. Anytime people go back to that rock to look for them, I get a little uneasy because I wasn't quite sure what they were going to find, if they were going to find anything, and just how people were actually talking about getting lost. And I'm just like, wow, if you could actually get lost there, that's scary in itself, because somebody literally could be like just on the verge of starvation or dehydration or succumbing to the elements. And it could be that somebody's literally walking by looking for them, can't see them because they're stuck in this crevice or whatever. And this person's too weak to call for help. I mean, like, this made my imagination go quite wild while I was watching this movie.
Well, yeah.
And this movie has that great... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. You keep going, sorry.
Okay, and just really quick, this movie also has that great ability to tell a lot of story without showing a lot. So building that atmosphere without showing you a lot of, blood and guts and action. It gets your imagination going.
Well, yes. The other thing too is that the paranormal just keeps popping up all the time in this.
Yes.
The idea that one of the girls that goes missing, Miranda, has Miranda lived before? Because there are all these images that we see, and it's a little bit like, hang on, that's 400 years ago, but that looks like Miranda, in artwork and things like that. Also, the two of the characters, one of the sort of the butler, come dog's body of a wealthy family whose son goes off to try to find the girls. He's called Albert. And one of the girls in the school for girls is an orphan who's in the school. And we sort of find out, once again, here's the spoilers, is that they are in fact brother and sister, but they don't know it. They don't actually know it. And when it comes to the time where Sarah's life is about to fall apart, she's about to be kicked out of the school because there's no money to pay for her anymore. And, and then she goes and does, something. Maybe I won't say what it is.
Yeah, we'll give a very couple of things so you guys are surprised.
And then suddenly Albert starts to actually talk about the paranormal experience that he has with this girl But it's very, very interesting. Also, whenever anybody, they find on the rock, they always have the identical scar on their forehead.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right.
Which is, leading the audience on to sort of think, oh, why do they always have exactly the same, scar? And also then the time that there is this idea that Hagging Rock, maybe there is something very paranormal about this. There's something that draws people to it. It's, will even draw people to its death. For instance, Miss Appleyard, towards the end of the film, as all her students are leaving the school, the parents are pulling them out because of this disappearance. They're scared for their children. And she will, at the end of the film, be drawn back to the rock herself. Yes. So I won't tell you what happens. As I said, we'll try to keep some stuff open, but but she will even be drawn back to the rock at the end of the film herself. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and you've gotten a lot more out of this than I have, unfortunately, simply because this is definitely a movie that you can watch several times and you're going to start picking up on all those clues and coincidences and foreshadowing. And this film does have quite a bit of foreshadowing, but you're not quite sure what it's foreshadowing. But there's stuff such as even the girls saying, I'll be leaving soon. And you think they mean that just the semester's ending and they're going to go home for the holidays, but then actually they go missing. People talk about clocks and watches stopping all at the same time at certain times. And just the overall atmosphere of nighttime is spooky time around that girls' school where, this is back in 1900. Everybody's walking around with their little gas lamps and that shit's just creepy on its own because of all the shadows. And you can only see, half a foot or, 2 feet in front of you with your little chandelier and
and there's other lines. I mean, when Miranda, Arima, I think her name is, and Marion are climbing the rock, they're the girls who disappear. Is that I think it's Arima actually makes the comment that she's standing on top of the rock looking down at all the picnickers below. And she sort of says, she starts talking about humans as if she's not human herself. Like she starts talking about humans as if it's another species, which is really, really interesting. And there is, once again, there's no answers to a lot of these things. It just throws up all these questions. And that's the thing, that when you watch it, you will come away with so many answers, with so many questions. None of them are actually answered for you. And this is what makes this film very, very different.
Yeah, absolutely. The camera angles in this movie added to the creepiness of this movie. A lot of times at The Rock, the camera angle would take on this very, well, obviously films are a very voyeuristic experience for the audience, but at the same time, this camera was doing sometimes almost a point of view type perspective where like the camera was peeking out from around the corner, watching the girls walk by and kind of like spying on them. And that makes you just feel like, oh God, is there a predator? Is there a monster? What is it? It's something creepy. And then the girls disappear and you're like, oh God, what is it?
I think it's definitely meant to be that something is watching the girls. Now, whether that be a creature, whether that be, or even whether it be the rock itself, but something is definitely watching them. And I think that is actually a fact, that something is actually meant to be watching them. And this is where we're going to give a really big spoiler. Okay. And that is the final chapter of this story, which actually answers all of the questions. And are we ready? Everyone's pausing if you don't want to.
Okay, so the final part you're talking about is in the book, but not in the movie, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So don't be disappointed when you watch the movie and this isn't in the movie.
This isn't in the movie. But one of the things that we should say first is that of the 3 girls and the teacher who disappears, one of them is found, and that's Marion. Okay. And she's found with the cut on her forehead. Now, the thing is that when we go into the final chapter, now one thing that you will notice is that when the girls sort of fall asleep on the rock before they make the big climb up, and one of the girls screams out, "No, Miranda, don't go up there!" Ah! Which is
that scream was bone chilling.
Oh, I know.
Like, oh my! I think I literally went, Jesus Christ! Like when she screamed like that.
Now,
so have the volume down, people,
yes.
when that scream comes.
Now, one of the things you will notice is that there is a lizard that walks past them as they're sleeping.
Yes.
Now, if you notice
Yes.
that. Now, when we get to the final chapter, as you said, which is not in the film, that lizard is a very crucial part of the story, because what actually happens is that, so here we go. Just quickly fast forward for 5 minutes if you don't want to hear this. Okay. So what actually happens is that as the girls are walking up the rock, they feel that there's some sort of force interacting with them that forces them to go to sleep. They then wake up and they find that there is a woman standing there. Now, the woman who is standing there is Miss McCraw, but they don't recognize her as Miss McCraw, even though it is Miss McCraw, the teacher. Miss McCraw has basically lost her clothing. They then start to remove their corsets and their shoes and so forth, and they go and throw them away. And what happens is time physically stops. Things will float in midair. The clocks have all stopped. They're in some sort of time bubble. And then as they start to follow the teacher up further into the rock, she becomes a lizard. I'm not joking, okay? She becomes a lizard. So this is where the lizard is from, right?
Yeah,
now,
I tried not to laugh.
Okay, so as she follow the lizard, and then it takes them through a cavity, and they disappear. But just as the third girl is about to go through, which is Marion, it closes. The portal closes, and that's the reason why she's found during the film. It's also the reason why the son of the family who goes off to try to find the girls is also found with the same cut on his head, because they've reached the portal, but they haven't entered the portal, if this makes sense. And that's why they've got the scar. So this is, sort of part of it. Now, this whole thing deals with so many different elements. I mean, for instance, with the changing into the animal, it deals with, Aboriginal religion, the dream time, obviously.
Right.
But it also plays with the idea of time travel, of the paranormal events. And it's also one reason, if you're watching this film, you'll notice that there are clocks everywhere ticking away. There's always clocks. And they're always bringing up this idea of time. And that's why it's been thought that this movie is actually about time travel. And that's why in many of these books, like the French teacher is reading a book and she sees a picture of Miranda in the book.
Right.
So possibly that's why the girls have actually gone back in time.
Exactly. No, like I said, even if I haven't read the book, and even without knowing all this, because I was able to glean it from online without reading the book, but even without knowing all this, like what happens at the end of the movie, after the movie, in the book, this is still quite an enjoyable film that leaves a lot of questions unanswered, but I find that's really fun, the way it adds to the mystery. I don't find it to be a frustrating conclusion. Unfortunately, some people will find this ending frustrating, but even if you don't like the ending of this movie, the overall journey of this film is really beautiful to watch. The cinematography in this is absolutely gorgeous. The entire film has this pretty soft focus, and there's a lot of pastel colors that the girls are wearing. Even just the attention to detail, the costumes, the sets, the atmospheres. I mean, the girls are wearing corsets. the way that they're entertaining themselves. This is before calling your friends on the phone or going down to the local Starbucks or playing, games on your phone all day. This is, they're actually reading, they're actually knitting, they're actually enjoying nature and exploring nature, which is why they're excited about going on a picnic on Valentine's Day, because, they were actually more in tune with their environment. And maybe that's why these women were chosen, or I should say girls, were chosen for time travel, because they were in tune with nature. They were the ones that went from the group and actually went exploring on Hanging Rock. But like I said, if you don't know the extra information from the book, it doesn't ruin the movie. It's obviously more mysterious and you don't have a definitive answer, but it's still such a well-paced film full of intrigue and mystery and just not quite a gothic creepiness to it. I mean, there are gothic elements, as well as our next film that was unintentional. Yes. But I really loved watching this. I really enjoyed it.
And the other thing too is, apart from the fact that obviously, as we said, it's directed by Peter Weir, who is a huge director. The other thing is, all the people in this movie, all the actors are actually very famous actors. Now, you may, although possibly outside of Australia, a number of them won't be recognised, but there are some that will be. For instance, the character Albert, the, dog's body manservant, whatever you want to call him.
He looks so familiar to me, and I cannot place him.
And that's because he is John Jarratt, and John Jarratt would, of course, star as the serial killer in Wolf Creek.
Oh, my God. Okay. Yeah, wow, okay. Wow, I could not make the connection. I didn't look at his filmography, but the entire fucking movie, I'm like, God, he looks so familiar. I cannot place this guy. Where do I know him from? Wow, okay, yeah. Okay, that just blew my mind.
So if you've seen Wolf Creek and you want to see a very young version of John Jarratt, very young, then here he is. Also, the character of Miss McGraw is British audiences will remember her from Neighbours. She played Mrs. Mangle for about 15 years. Probably Australia's most famous soap opera. It's Mrs. Mangle is actually in this movie, but playing a very different role, to what a lot of British audiences anyway will remember her as. And it actually just shows just how fine an actress, she was. It's the other thing too that must be said is that huge amounts of filmmakers and actors have actually said openly that this film has influenced their life dramatically. What is it? Sophia Coppola? Or Coppola, I should say. She actually said this is one of the most influential films she's seen. In regards to her filmmaking, was it Chloe Sevigny? Basically, sort of said that she was very influenced, by this film in her sort of her acting and so forth. So this movie really is a big cult classic that unfortunately, unless you're sort of in the film biz or you live in Australia or, maybe Europe, you won't have seen.
Right. Or if you like hearing about strange disappearances, this movie gets talked about a lot because a lot of people in that field think this is a true story for some reason.
Yes. We have to. It's a bit like Blair Witch. You remember when Blair Witch first came out, and stuff. Yeah. The book from the 60s played with the idea, was it or wasn't it a true story? And the movie goes on and does exactly the same thing. It plays with the idea and gives you this sort of hint that it's a true story. Well, of course it's not. It's a novel. It was not a true story. The argument was meant to be that the police station, the Wallen police station, Wallen is a country town near Mount Maston, which is where Hagging Rock is. And, the story is meant to be that in 1903, a bushfire, so what do you call that? A wildfire, came through the area and burnt the police station down which destroyed all the records. And that's why this is now just a story, even though it's real. Well, no, of course it's not. It's just a novel. but it was a great advertising gimmick at the time to get interest, into the film.
No, it's a really entertaining film. There's not a lot of comic relief in this, but every movie I watch, I'm always like, because I guess I just have a goofy imagination, but there was some stuff in there I was like, okay, first off, this was actually a really cool nuance to the film that the headmistress, so Miss Appleyard, the one that owns the school for girls, she's very upset, obviously, over the disappearance of these girls, because now that's going to, cast a bad light on her school, and people are withdrawing their daughters from the school, and they're not paying the tuition. So, beginning, Miss Appleyard has this very tight hairdo. I think so annoying. Like, every time I see her, I was just like, this is such an annoying hairdo. It reminded me of Gary Oldman and Bram Stoker's Dracula. I mean, that fucking hairdo. But as the movie goes on and she starts to, unravel, so does her hair. Her hair gets looser and looser.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Yes.
Her hair is almost a statement of her personality.
Yes, I love that. Okay, there's one scene. I'm sorry if I'm being culturally insensitive, but this made me chuckle. It just looked so funny to me. So when they do the original search party and they've got like everybody they can find, townspeople, law enforcement trying to find these girls, there is one dude that is straight up dressed like a pirate. Can you explain that? Do you know why this guy looks like a pirate?
Yeah.
He had a red coat, he had a 3-corner hat, and I'm like, that dude looks like a fucking pirate. Okay, sorry.
He is he's an Aboriginal.
Okay, I figured that much, but still.
No.
He's dressed like a pirate.
No, but what it is that he's an Aboriginal tracker. So he would sort of live on this is 1900, okay? So this is not a good time of Australian history in regards to the treatment of Indigenous people. They were not, in 1900, Aboriginals were not treated as citizens. They didn't really have any rights. It was a bit South African. You know what I mean? They were treated badly. They tended to live in poverty on the outskirts of towns or cities. They were just treated appallingly. Well, and there's still an argument they're still treated appallingly today, but we're not going to get all political here. And the thing is, it's a little bit like, that's sort of him dressing in a Western style. He thinks that's fashionable. You know what I mean?
Sorry.
Even though he's dressed in sort of like 150 years out of date. Yeah. No, not at all. But that's actually kind of quite real because, it's a bit like, let's take Native Americans for argument's sake. You'll often see photographs taken of Native Americans maybe 150 years ago where they seem to just be dressed in this weird combination of European clothes and Indigenous clothes, it's sort of that's sort of what it's about. Yeah. So
yes, I understand completely.
Yeah,
I understand completely. It's kind of like last year's style is their current style, and like, oh, this was hot 20 years ago, but that's the only thing they can get their hands on. So it's like for them, that's dressing modern. I hear you.
So,
but I'm sorry, that's only probably going to be humorous to me. Like, I'm sure Australian people don't think it's funny, but for me, I was like, okay, they have an actual fucking pirate. I knew he wasn't a pirate, but at the time, my mind was just like, okay, I hope this dude has like a bigger part in the movie because I want to know if he uses pirate speech. If he's like, "Arr, the ladies be over there, matey." Like but this is the stuff I think about when I watch movies. I always think of little weird things that have nothing to do with the fucking movie. The other thing that made me, this is another piece of my mind, but my running joke with this movie is, okay, so 4 schoolgirls and a teacher go up into Hanging Rock, and 3 of the girls get taken, and the teacher gets taken, and Warren gave us a little inside info on what actually happens with the teacher. But anyways, the one girl that didn't get taken, as I say, I was like, that's because that girl is fucking annoying. That they didn't want to take her. They're like, you're staying here, because she was always complaining, always griping. It's hot. I'm tired. When are we going home? This place is so nasty. What are you doing? And I was just like, that's why she didn't get invited to go time traveling, because she was annoying as fuck. But
sorry, we've got a phone going off.
No problem.
Oh, there we go.
Problem. But that was just my running joke for this movie. I was like, of course you're not going to take the annoying girl into the future or time traveling or, So if you want to time travel, you got to learn to be polite and hold your tongue. Don't complain about the heat. Don't complain you're tired. Just be quiet, be nice, and you'll get to go on the time warp tour as well.
Yes, so we can, let's do the time warp again. It's just a jump through a rock. Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, you jump into a rock.
And you travel through
really,
time.
This is not a funny movie. I find funny moments because that's what I do when I watch movies. But actually, the acting in this is quite good. It's really solid performances. People do a really good job of conveying concern. Australian heat, I think that helps add to people's acting in this movie because they are fully dressed in old school Victorian fashion, straight up with corsets, hot hats, multi-layers, tight pants, boots. I mean, it's fucking hot as hell, and they are sweating in this movie. And I think that just helped to add to their performance because when they looked worried or miserable, they probably really were.
Well, that's the thing, because you remember it's Valentine's Day, so that's March. Right. March or February? March or February?
For us, it's February. For us, it's
February. Sorry. No, it's February. Sorry. Okay, now I'm going to get a punch later on, aren't I? Okay. It's February. And the thing is that's especially in the area where this is set, which is in the state of Victoria, that's actually probably the hottest month of the year. And to get temperatures into the 40s, that's 40 degrees Celsius. So what's that in American?
That's over 100 degrees.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. And the thing is that, all right, today you go out for a picnic at Hagging Rock in February. You'd probably go in your tank top and singlet, or girls would be in their little cut-off denim shorts, or they'd be wearing summer dresses, or, whatever. Guys will just be in shorts and T-shirts. But back then, they're wearing 5 or 6 layers, and not cotton, but wool. Of all things, wool. So, you actually really, did you feel the heat? Did you feel that heat coming?
Yes. Like the other one that was like the I want to call him a Bobby, the police officer.
Yes, the police officer.
Because of what he was wearing was very English looking. He had that uncomfortable old school, like, as I was saying, Bobby style hat with like the little chin strap that's like way too short and like practically in his mouth. And I'm like, oh God, that looks hot as hell. That looks so uncomfortable. But yeah, I was like, wow. And that just adds to the tension. I'm like, okay, they're already away from what they have for civilization back in 1900. So it's not like you had like, water fountains periodically placed and they had bottled water and, coolers with ice cubes. And it's just like, oh my God. So not only are you lost in this beautiful / creepy place, but it's a very good chance if you're not careful, you're going to pass out from heat exhaustion and die because nobody's going to find you or know you're there.
Would you notice that they keep saying all the time, watch out for snakes, watch out for snakes.
Yes,
the way through the movie, they're always saying, watch out for snakes. Because, of course, that's feeding frenzy, February, for snakes. And now, of course, it's now there'd probably be a lot of people, especially in Britain, who'd be watching this and going, oh God, here we go again, the snake thing. And it's so amazing because if you're brought up in Australia, you don't think twice about it. It's just part of nature. You don't care. You don't even think about it. But I know for a lot of people who weren't brought up in Australia, it terrifies them. This snake thing about Australia absolutely terrifies them.
I'm terrified of your spiders, man. Your spiders over there are like gargantuan size. Like, those fucking B movies from the 50s? Those are actually biographical films about Australia, about how big the fucking spiders get over there. Because, oh my God. And, and I'm the biggest arachnophobe on the planet, and I'm just like, if I see one of those, I'm killing that motherfucker with an AK-47 that I smuggled in. Because I'm serious. Those things are horrifying to me.
The joke is that there's only actually 2 poisonous spiders in Australia. There's only two.
I don't care if they're poisonous. They're still humongous.
Oh, yes. But snakes, I think Australia has, is it 9 of the 10 deadliest snakes in the world?
Oh, is that true? Really?
I believe it is.
That.
Yeah, I believe
really?
it is. Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. And I'm not afraid of the snakes. I'm afraid of the 2 poisonous spiders.
Yes. Although I should tell you, nobody has died of a spider bite in Australia, I think, since the 1960s.
Right on.
So we've got that pretty covered. People do die every now and again from snakes, but it'd be 1 every 10 years. People don't die of snakes anymore, you know. So
this is a little off topic.
We're a bit off topic, aren't we? Yes.
But I promise we'll get back on. But I have to share this story because I think it's so funny that this was actually a news story that I read last year that happened in Australia, and some people called the police on their neighbor because they thought there was a domestic violence dispute because the man was screaming, "I'm going to kill you, you fucking bitch." And he said it many times, and there was a lot of like ruckus. And so they sent the police over, and the police, you know, doing their job, are like, "Okay, sir, where's your girlfriend or where's your partner? You know, where's this woman?" And he's like, "Oh." And he's like, I don't have a woman here. And they're like, "Well, your neighbors have reported that they heard you screaming and they said that you were threatening to kill somebody." And he goes, "Oh, that was me. It was a spider."
I have heard that story as well. It's supposedly, I think, meant to be from Queensland, but
I think that's where I read it.
Yeah, but I don't actually know if it is true. I'm not 100% sure. It's, you know, it's maybe one of those wives' tales sort of thing. I don't 100% know, but it's a good story though.
Okay, getting back to Hagging Rock, thank you for letting me share that. This movie has huge cultural impact because it's actually being made into a 6-part miniseries right now. Have you heard about this?
Yes, it's going to be, supposedly it was going to be released this year. It was in pre-production, I think, last year, 2016. This year, supposedly it was going to be released. I don't know if that's going to be the case. They've released the cast, so the cast have actually been officially announced. It is going to happen. But let's face it, we're in March now. If they haven't even started filming yet, I'm not 100% sure whether this is actually going to be released this year. Maybe it'll be 2018. But yes, it is happening. There is actually going to be a TV series.
The cast, is it going to be well-known Australian actors or international actors or unknowns? Do you know?
It'll be, I'll put it to you this way. If you're Australian, you'll know who they are. If you're not an Australian, you probably maybe are not going to know who they are, put it that way.
Okay.
But for Australian audiences, yes, they'll recognise who the cast are.
That'll be cool.
But it's going to be very interesting to see how they do this, because some of the theories is that because we've already had the film, so everyone sort of knows what happens, and because it sort of deals with this paranormal concept, the whole idea is that are they actually going to make it as the book or as the movie, or are they maybe going to follow on from where the movie, so in other words, where the movie ends, maybe this will be where the TV series starts. Now, I don't know. I haven't heard enough. They've been kind of tight-lipped about the whole thing, but it's going to be fascinating. And if they are actually going to base it off the book, it'll be the story of the book. Then it'll be very interesting whether they include the final chapter or not. Right.
I'm curious to see that too. You'll have to smuggle in a copy for me once it hits the shores in Australia, so that I can see it over here in the States. Because I'm quite curious about that. I'm also curious if it's going to be a modernized version in present time, or if it's going to be a period piece back in Victorian era Australia.
I think they'll stick to the period.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't think the story would work extraordinarily well if you set it in. I mean, the whole idea too is that See, today, Hagging Rock, the actual place, is only about an hour's drive outside of the city of Melbourne. Also, you can't really get lost there. There's roads and traffic everywhere. It's surrounded by 4 roads. I mean, even if you did get lost, all you've got to do is just point in a direction and walk for about 500 meters and you'll hit a road, So, so I don't really think it would work. But then again, maybe it would, because the whole idea, all our modern devices would stop working. Like, for instance...
But, you could also do a modernized... I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off as always. You could always do a modernized timepiece where we don't quite have that technology yet. Because, it could be the 70s where we don't have our cell phones yet, is my thing, too. So I'm always curious when they do modernize stuff. Sometimes they go, oh, well, let's not do it in 2017, let's take them back to the 60s when we didn't quite have the cell phones and GPS in everybody's home yet. So that way people can disappear easier.
Yeah. I think if you would go, that's a possibility. I think if you were going to set it today, 2017, you could probably get around a lot of the cell phones type thing, because they would all stop working, all this sort of stuff,
that's a good one. For that story, that would totally work.
So once they start to climb the rock, just as in the original, time stops. Well, in this, you just had the same thing. So all your mobile devices stop working and all the rest of it. I think the problem would be that too many people know Hagging Rock. And so the issue would then be, it's like, well, we can understand all of the paranormal bit, but how could you get lost there? It's sort of like, the only way you could maybe do it is you could make Hagging Rock a mythical place. So don't make it the actual Hagging Rock. Make it some other mythical place in Australia. If you did that, maybe you could modernise it. I don't really know. But here's a story about Hagging Rock for you, about the paranormal, which is 100% true, because I've been there and I've witnessed it. And that is the Roll Uphill Road. Now, this is just around Hagging Rock. There is a road where if you drive your car along the road, you come to a certain spot, and as far as you're aware, you're going downhill, okay?
Right.
You stop the car, put it into neutral, take your foot off the brake. Sorry, you're going uphill. Sorry, can I start again? You're going uphill. Yeah, sorry. Okay, right. Yeah.
I was like, wow, big.
Yeah, right. Okay, you're all right. You're going uphill. You take your foot off the brake and the car starts to roll uphill.
You know what? We have one of those in the United States.
Yeah, there's
too. I can't
lots
remember
of them.
where.
There's lots of them around the world, and they're just they're just optical illusions. Obviously, it's,
is that what it is?
Yeah,
okay.
Because the problem is, because of everything that's around you, the trees or the hills or whatever, it appears that the road is going up when it's actually going down. It's just an optical illusion. And yes, there are a number of sites like this around the world where everybody goes there on a Saturday afternoon and hops in the car, puts it in neutral and watches it.
Wow. There's, I remember the one, I can't remember where it is. It's in the United States. There's one where they do that over railroad tracks, and they have the whole story. Do you have that too?
No. I've seen the railway track one. Yeah.
Like a bus full of kids got, hit by a train. So now what happens is they want to prevent you from dying. So if you park your car on the tracks and put it in neutral, the ghosts of the children will push your fucking car over the tracks so you don't get hit. And I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, urban legend. But now we know it's an optical illusion.
Just an optical illusion.
Simple gravity.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just your eyes playing tricks on your mind. But it adds to the spookiness of Hagging Rock, I suppose.
Definitely.
The fact
totally.
That is actually there. So, all right. Well, I think it's time to rate this one. How many clocks?
Good one.
How many clocks?
This film definitely worth checking out. Like I said, it's beautifully shot. I even read somewhere that the director actually placed a piece of veil, like fabric, over the lens to give it that soft focus the entire time. Really beautifully shot. So even just for the cinematography, if you don't like the story, worth checking out. So out of a possible five Eric Roberts, I'm going to go ahead and give this 5 clocks.
Well, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 as well, because
excellent.
It's hard. I know some people will have a problem with the ending, because there are a lot of people out there in the world who basically everything has to be finalized. It has to be finished. Right. They don't want to walk out of a movie or finish reading a book with unanswered questions. They want to have it finalized and move on, rather than go to the local cafe or pub after they've been to the cinema and discuss what they've just witnessed, And I know there's a lot of people who don't like that, but I personally do. I think that's amazing, and stuff. So definitely it's worth 5. And the other thing too is that, as you said, the cinematography is just unbelievable.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, and Peter Weir manages to sort of express that feeling of extreme Australian heat in the middle of what Americans would call the wilderness. We just call it the bush. That doesn't quite sound as good. And it's tied in with the most chilling soundtrack, which works so well. And the other thing too about the soundtrack of this, not only is the music very haunting, the music in many ways describes the emotions of each character as you're watching it. If they're undergoing an activity, the music works with them. It's almost like, It's like watching a, I don't know what I was going to say, but it's quite amazing the way the music works with the film. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
One of the things we forgot to mention, I'm just going to throw it out there really quick, is also we did mention attention to detail, costumes, the sets. The acting is spot on, but I also want to mention the mannerisms, the way the girls hold themselves, because they're from a finishing school, an all-girls school, and they're very delicate and very graceful, except for the one that got left behind because she complains too much. But I mean, seriously, really beautifully well done. Just the way they hold themselves are very graceful, very polite in their speech, really beautiful, soft-spoken. So definitely check this one out.
Oh, yes. And the attention to detail, for that time period, if you wanted to see a period of Australia, which this is obviously meant to be 1900, where the country is a real mixture. And you'll notice that too, because you'll notice the wealthy family is a classic example where the dog's body servant, he's Australian. Like, he's born in Australia, raised in Australia.
And the son can't understand him when he speaks. He's like, what?
Because the son is English. The son is British. And so, and this was a time where Australia was very much divided between the locals, if you like, the Australian-born Australians, and the immigrants who were the British. And so you had this almost culture clash, if you like, which really wouldn't sort of finalize itself or wouldn't really sort itself out until the First World War, when suddenly everybody realized, oh, fuck, we're not British or we're not this, or we're actually Australians, And for the first time ever, the country realized it was a country. But of course, this is set in 1900, so that hasn't developed yet. It's still a very divided place. Australia hadn't found its national identity in 1900. Yeah. Australia wouldn't find its national identity until 1915, with a very, very big event.
And you learn stuff on this show all the time.
Yes. Gallipoli would be what would sort of, I suppose, make Australia a nation, which is kind of crazy because it happened in Turkey. But anyway, that's another story. So, all right. Well, I think we will take a quick break, and we'll be right back. If I can get this right, I always get it wrong, but here we go. It's playing. We'll be right back. And we're back. Now, our final movie for this podcast is from moving to the United States now, from 1971, a movie called The Beguiled. And it's got some similarities, I suppose, to Picnic at Hagging Rock, at least where it's set anyway, but still quite a different movie. And there's something that happens in this movie which we have to sort of just bring up the point. It's a little bit like, is there something you want to tell us, Velvet?
Yeah, that's our running joke on this show now. Is I always like these movies that have somebody losing a limb or getting amputated, something weird like. As I already have another movie on our list that has those themes in it, and yeah, I'm going to space it out though. But I don't know why that is in a lot of movies that I like. I don't actually have an amputee fetish. I promise I don't. If I did, I would own it. I would say, "Oh, men with the nubs are the best." I would say it if I felt that way. But it's just one of those weird themes that you find in your life, and you're not really sure why. But I'll let you get back to introduce.
I was just about to say we're not going to at some stage in 2017 have Velvet presents cult classics of amputation.
Like, this is, you guys wanted it. Actually, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
The amputee special.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And we're not trying to be insensitive to anybody who's dealt with
No, of course not. No.
But for some reason it's a common theme in a lot of the movies that I like.
So anyway, so The Beguiled from 1971. Now, it was directed by Don Siegel and stars Clint Eastwood. And it is a movie that a lot of people know and a lot of people don't know. But it definitely is a bit of a cult classic. Well, hence why we're talking about it. We wouldn't be talking about it otherwise. Now, just a brief rundown on this one. I'll try. Now, once again, warning, there's probably going to be a few spoilers in this, okay? So, but don't worry, next week we'll go back to no spoilers. So, anyway. Now, it's set during the American Civil War. And it's in the southern states. So that's what? The Confederacy.
Right.
That's right, isn't it? Yeah, the Confederacy.
Yes.
And it centers around a girls' school, a school for young women. Now, there is a battle that takes place just outside of where this school is. And one of the northern soldiers, is, of course, played by Clint Eastwood, is severely wounded. And he is found by one of the young girls from the school and is taken back to the school where, instead of handing him over to the authorities as a prisoner, they decide that he's too sick and he'll probably die as a prisoner. So they decide that they're going to nurse him back to health. Well, once he starts to be nursed back to health, let's just say he's not quite the nice guy that he necessarily pretends to be in many parts of this movie. And he will take full advantage of being inside a school which is only full of women. There are no other men, basically in this school. And then, of course, the problem with this is that it will start to backfire on him as jealousy starts to raise its head amongst many of the women and also young girls in this school. And he will then basically, something will happen to him which will cause his leg to be amputated while he's in the school. So now,
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, as we said. And he will, of course, then become what he views as a prisoner of these women. And then he will try to control this whole situation. But of course, it won't necessarily end the way he's hoping it's going to end. I think that would be fair. What are your thoughts, Velvet?
Yeah, this is one of those really, for me, it was a very odd movie at the time. I don't remember how I saw this movie. I don't know why. I know what happens in this movie, but I was like, okay, we have to review this movie because it's actually being remade for this year.
Yes.
But we'll talk about that later. Because that's interesting in and of itself. But yeah, this movie, first off, definitely worth a watch. So spoiler alert on my review right there. But this movie has a long intro, like title sequence. So like the first 2 minutes of this movie, it shows like battlefield photos, like authentic Civil War battlefield photos and like a sepia tone. So it's already setting the mood that this is not going to be a happy story, most likely.
No.
And then once the movie gets started, I do actually like the effect of first the movie starts off in a sepia tone. And I was like, is this whole movie in sepia? I don't remember that. But then it fades into color very quickly. So I thought that was a really cool effect. And the overall cinematography of this movie is actually also quite attractive. It's got kind of gothic horror elements to it again, big house. It's kind of spooky. You just got that uneasy feeling. But this is not a supernatural film. But it builds up a lot of tension right from the beginning. You find out pretty quickly that the character that Clint Eastwood plays, John McBurney, or they call him McB a lot of the times in this movie, that dude's a fucking scumbag. He is not a nice character. Oh my God. But like right within that first opening sequence, I was so uneasy. I was like, whoa, wait, I don't remember this part of the movie. Now I'm just going to say this right away, right at the very beginning. McBee kisses a 12-year-old girl. He kind of like steals a kiss from her. And this guy is like, an adult in his 30s at least. And I'm just like, ew, yuck. That's really disturbing. I was like, now what's going to happen? But that, just the way they set this movie up, just within the first 5 minutes, you're just like, whoa, okay, what is going to happen? What do you think, Warren?
Yeah, it definitely plays with a lot of very taboo subjects.
Yes.
I mean, first of all, we have to say that Clint Eastwood's character, yes, I mean, we start to learn, I mean, for instance, he will tell, for instance, one of the teachers his backstory. He will say, how he got wounded. But while he's telling the story, we see images of what really happened. And we find out that this guy is a liar. This guy is not telling the truth. He claims to be a medical orderly who didn't carry a weapon, who was trying to save lives during the battle. We find out that he was, in fact, a skirmisher, a sniper, who was picking, Confederate soldiers off from a hidden position. So he was very much a warrior, not a medical person, as he claimed. He's also very much a misogynist. He's a user. He's a womanizer. As you said, he's not a nice person at all. And this movie does play with these ideas of not a taboo, as in, I suppose, almost pushing the barriers of pedophilia. But it also plays not so much through the character of Clint Eastwood, actually through the madam of the school, the headmistress. It plays with the ideas of incest as well.
Yes. It doesn't play with them.
It goes out and it states it. Yes, it states it. So it's playing with a lot of uncomfortable issues, but I think it still manages to play with them well in the sense of the way it's actually the way the story's told. It's uncomfortable without being. It's uncomfortable in the way that it makes you think and makes you draw your conclusions on who the characters are without making you want to turn away. So I think they found a very good balance in being able to deal with these subjects without making it horrific.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, exactly. Well said. It's not shocking. It's not just for the sake of shock value at all. It's very, I almost want to say gracefully done. It's really like putting all these terrible elements in there of possible pedophilia, incest. They talk about rape quite a bit. And there's a scene in this movie where for half a second, you think it's going to turn into a sexual assault. And I'm just like, oh God. I was like, please don't put that in this movie too. There's already so much stuff happening. But no, it was a very tense scene, and that Thank goodness it didn't turn into that, because I don't think I would be able to handle this movie, to be honest, because I'm just like, oh God, there's too much stuff going on. Again, just like our last movie, this movie also had great attention to detail with the sets and the costumes, and even the accents in this. They were made notice of that he's supposed to be a Yankee. Clint Eastwood's supposed to be from, the North, from the Union Army, and, they're there in the South, the Confederate. And so they did a good job on the accents as well when they were speaking to differentiate the difference between the two. Again, the whole thing of isolation, and oh my God, the sexual tension in this movie is so thick. You could cut it with a knife. Almost every single character in this movie is starved for sex, except for the children. They're innocent, and luckily for them, they're not plagued by that from their perspective, but even they could possibly fall prey, because like right in the beginning of the movie, one of the fears of the girls is that, oh, if them Yanks come over here, they're going to rape us all. And I'm like, geez, that's like, this is a persistent fear amongst like the children in this girls' school. But yeah, just from the moment this movie starts, it's tense. And this was just right in the beginning. It was really weird. Did you notice this too? So when Clint Eastwood's character first shows up and he's injured and, he's going to die if they don't help him, like several of the girls are like, is he going to die? Is he dying? They're like excited about it, like weirdly excited about, like happy excited. Did you notice that?
I did notice that. And I think that makes sense because, there's a war going on around them. The war has obviously been going for, a couple of years. The war has now basically it's turned. In other words, the North is now in Southern territory. This is not the early part of the war where the South was basically winning most of the time. This is set in the latter part of the war where the North was now conquering the various different, areas of the South. And so they would have had there's a couple of things, like the consistent talk about rape. Because they would have been brought up with this concept, it's like the Northerners are coming, they're going to rape and pillage and, the North, because they would have been brought up with all the propaganda that exists during war, And the other thing too is that this is maybe their first real experience of war. Like, the Northern Army is now literally on the gates of their school. And for this is the first time they've actually seen the horror of war, somebody dying, someone who's been wounded. And so there's this there's these two emotions. One, they've got the fear of what might happen to them, but then also the excitement of what they're seeing. And this might sound crazy, but if you listen to a lot of people who have actually lived through wars, like who have actually experienced them, they will often talk in the same way. It's like war is this combination of horror and fear, but there is also an element of excitement as well, which is somehow, I'm not trying to make war sound good. Please do not get me wrong. No,
I see what you're saying.
But there is this, it's like often you'll hear war journalists, for argument's sake, and they all talk about how they're horrified by what they're seeing and they're scared shitless. But within that fear comes this certain adrenaline rush that comes from something which is so out of the ordinary for normal people. And so I think that's where they're sort of coming from with that. And I think they did it very well.
Yes. I think I totally get what you're saying now. Okay, now that makes more sense to me. At the time, I couldn't quite wrap my head around. I'm like, okay, why are these girls so excited about this guy dying? But then I'm like, okay, now you explained that perfectly. So that helps me out with that.
But his character, now this is also an interesting thing. Did you, towards the end of this movie, we start to wonder, especially in the very final scenes, try not to give too much away, but as we said, this is a bit of a spoiler podcast. I think it's okay if we spoil this. I think it's okay if we spoil a good bit of this, because this movie, so if you want to see the remake that's coming out, maybe wait until you see the remake, or wait until you see this movie to listen to our episode, but we're going to go ahead and spoil some stuff for or some major stuff. But but we start to see a transformation, at least what we believe may be a transformation of Clint Eastwood's character, in the sense that he realizes that he's gone too far. That even though he blames the headmistress for amputating his leg, and there's all of this where he's basically trying to seduce every woman, who's at least over 16 anyway.
Well, I don't know about that. He was kissing a 12-year-old.
Yeah, I know.
I was disturbed by that. I honestly was like, oh my God. But what's happening?
But then after all that has happened, and he goes on this rampage within the house. And
poor
then,
turtle.
Yes, the turtle.
I had to say it. Poor
I know.
Turtle. Okay.
And then he wakes up the next morning, and did you believe the change? It's almost like, or do you think that he was still playing with them?
Yes and no. I think it was a case of he was humbled by his amputation, which is maybe why I like that in this movie. He was humbled by his amputation because now he didn't feel like he was completely, fully a man, but now he saw there was a woman that was still willing to love him despite his deformity. And so I was kind of like, I don't think you're playing now. I think now, but honestly, there's a lot of ways you could go with that. Was he still playing? Because he had already said, okay, I am leaving tomorrow. Like, I'm done. I'm leaving tomorrow. Maybe he wanted his new fiance to come with him to help him along the way so he could make it to his destination. Maybe he just didn't want to travel alone since he's traveling with 1.5 legs now. That's a theory.
Maybe so. Maybe you're saying that he was using her in a sense.
He might have been.
Because it to me it just seems a bit surprising that
might have been.
There's this guy who is clearly not a nice person, who has no problems in using people, abusing people.
And he even says, like, at one point he takes control of the house. He's holding these women there at gunpoint. And keep in mind, people, this is like in the middle of nowhere at a boarding school. So these women couldn't really like run and go anywhere because then they're worried they're going to get raped by the fucking Union soldiers.
Yes.
So, I mean, either way, there was nothing they could do. So now he's like holding them there at gunpoint. And he even said, I'm going to enjoy the company of whomever I desire. So he's basically saying he's going to take turns fucking them all. And I'm just like, wow, that's terrible. But then the next day he's like, okay, we're engaged and I'm leaving. And I'm like, wait, okay, I don't know. And also he's sober now because when he was doing all that shit, he was drunk and he's angry and he's feeling phantom pain, which, I mean, all that stuff combined together will make you pretty crazy. And now he's sober. So maybe he really did feel bad and really was in love with this girl and really did want to marry her and get out of there. No matter what, he definitely wanted to get the fuck out of there. That was definitely part of the plan. But was he really, feeling bad about the way he behaved? Was he, thinking maybe this is the price I pay for being a womanizing womanizing asshole that, I lose my leg? I don't know.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, does he change or does he not change? I mean, I in some ways tend to think that maybe he's using, to run away with the teacher and get married because, all throughout the entire movie, he is there using everybody, whether it be emotionally, physically, sexually. It's almost like he's this. He sort of struck me as the person who was almost like this. Like he's meant to be from New York, and I think he says he was from one of the New York regiments.
Right.
But he sort of strikes me as that maybe he was sort of like a bit of a petty criminal, or maybe he was his life has not really been very clean, if you know what I mean. He's, and so I find it a bit hard to accept that he would just change overnight, but then maybe he accepts the loss of his leg and that does change him. I mean, I don't know. It's very hard to tell. I suppose we could discuss this forever and never really know,
Well, also, I mean, I'm calling this guy a straight up scumbag, but at the same time, to what degree was he a scumbag? Like you said, because you're saying maybe he was a petty criminal to begin with, and that's why he was a piece of shit. But also, look what he was going through. I mean, when you're involved in war, you're seeing people die all the time, you're killing people all the time, you're being encouraged to commit these atrocities, burn down towns, doing whatever you have to do for country as well as for self-survival. So I also kind of wonder if he actually kind of is a victim of circumstance. Like, because there is even this point in the movie where he's just like, why shouldn't I indulge myself after everything I've been through? And I'm kind of like, well, maybe I could feel a little sorry for you, but I'd have to know more about you. And from what I've seen, you're just a sex-crazy scumbag that lies his way to get whatever he wants. But at the same time, maybe that's because you haven't seen a woman in months, and now you're surrounded by several that want to fuck your brains out, because it's not a case of he was, pushing his self onto women. I mean, these women wanted to fuck his brains out, and he was actually burdened by choice sometimes in this movie, and that burden of choice is what causes him to lose a fucking leg.
Well, but the other thing though is that and I want to get to losing the leg, the scene in just a moment, but definitely. But then again, we have to remember this head mistress. Her life has been hell as well. She's been involved, in an incestuous relationship. The war has taken everything from her. She was basically one of the southern elite, if you like, before the war. Right. Now she's basically poverty stricken. So the war has all the children are orphans who are in her school. The war has taken huge amounts actually from all of these people. It's not just Clint Eastwood who suffered from the war. It's like, all of them have suffered, in some way or the other. But there is a certain thing too which I did love in this movie, and that is that there is a crow that is all the way through this movie. I think it's a crow. I think that's a crow.
I think it's a crow, because she even calls him Mr. Crow.
Mr. Crow. Yeah. And it's meant to be a crow which has injured its wing or some such thing. And they've kept it basically tied up on a veranda while it heals, so it can't get away. And then when it heals, they'll let it fly away. But it's tied up. And of course, that is, of course, a statement of the way Clint Eastwood sees himself, that he is now a prisoner, if you like, of these women, until he then turns the tables and makes the women his prisoner. But what happens to the bird at the end is a really interesting statement about what happens to Clint Eastwood.
Sorry. Like, this movie's not funny. I mean, there's not really no comic relief in this movie, but how outrageous the story is, it has some of it makes me laugh, because I'm like, my God, it's just like, this guy couldn't have done anything to save himself. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because, I jokingly wrote in my notes, hell hath no fury like a scorned woman. Well, if he denied any of them, he would have scorned at least 3 women, or actually 4, I guess, kind of 4. But then when he picked one, he's still in fucking trouble. So I'm like, there is nothing he could have done to save himself except for escape in the fucking night. And he didn't do that, because he couldn't. It's a bit like,
if you want to play the field simultaneously, it might come back to haunt you. Just saying. It might come back to haunt you. So, maybe, don't do it. Maybe don't do it.
Okay. Like I said, we'll try not to spoil every single thing in this movie, but there's so much great stuff to talk about in this movie. Okay, so the character of Edwina, she is the school teacher virgin. She's like, I think her character was supposed to be about 22, because at one point she's saying she'd been there since she was 17, and she'd been there for 5 years.
Yeah, so she was early like 20s, 20, something like that, yeah.
And so, but she was a virgin, and so she's very, proper, well-raised. And so the whole movie, she's very restrained, very well-behaved, and, she's really stern with the other girls that are younger than her, because she's a role model. But when she gets fucking scorned by Clint Eastwood's character in this movie, I love how she just fucking unleashes
she goes psycho. She goes psycho, bitch.
So, You lying son of a bitch! You bastard! I hope you're dead! I mean, like, she went off for like a good 30 seconds. And it's really shocking when you watch this movie because you just had no idea that was even in her character at all. It's like, holy shit. And, like, you know what? Clint better hope he's fucking dead in this movie because she's going to kill him. And she actually doesn't kill him, so no spoilers there. I'll say that. That way you guys aren't like, "Aw, Velvet, you ruined it." No, I didn't. You have to see what happens.
No, you'll have to see what happens later in the film. But one thing I have to bring up is the amputation scene where they realise that, and I suppose we should explain why they cut off his leg. Otherwise, it's not going to make any sense. And that is that something happens in this huge argument when he's basically all the women want to sleep with him simultaneously, and he chooses one which pisses off the others. Anyway, he gets injured. We'll just say that. Yeah. And anyway, so in order to save his life, they need to remove his leg. Now, the thing about it is that I found this scene. I don't know what you thought, Velvet, but I watch a lot of horror films and all this sort of stuff, and it's all fine. I actually found myself looking away.
Good. I love hearing you say that. This scene did an amazing job of building tension without even showing a lot.
Yes, they don't actually really show it. It's implied, and we hear the sounds, but we don't see it. But I found myself saying, "I can't watch this." I really had to look away.
And then you said, "What the fuck, Velvet?"
Here we go again, Velvet. Here we go again.
But yeah, no, they did not show a lot. They gave you enough setup to know what the fuck was going to happen, how they were going to do it, which is so horrific. And I mean, oh my God, let's just say, okay, people, fucking middle of nowhere during the Civil War. Do you think they're going to have a sterile operating environment to amputate somebody's fucking leg? Imagine what they're going to use. Anesthesia? Hello? What is that? No. Oh my God. Yeah, this scene was just horrific. But again, that adds to the whole gothic horror element where it builds that tension and atmosphere without gore. I mean, there was a little bit of blood to show you, they're definitely doing this, but it was not like, hey, this is Saw number 72. Look at all the guts spill out. Like, no, this is 1971 cinema. Very well done in building tension on that part. I loved it.
Well, do you know the other thing too, where I thought that where this film would have worked really well, because if you notice when you see them in the house and you see them on the roof, because they have these lookouts on the roof to look out for enemy soldiers who might be close by, and it has a very It almost appears to be like a castle in the middle of nowhere. I don't know if you found that. It sort of has that appearance. And I suddenly thought to myself, this movie, there's that gothic thing. You could almost be in a castle in the year 1250. And you could almost reshoot this set in the Middle Ages and just have the Clint Eastwood character as maybe one of, I don't know, Henry V's archers or something like that from the Battle of Agincourt or something, who gets taken in to a castle where there's no men left, there's only women in the castle. And, but I was thinking to myself, wow, it's got this almost, it's so gothic, in its look. Yeah.
Big time. They had one slave housekeeper in this movie. I really liked her character. One of the interesting things they did in this movie is they would give you a little bit of backstory on the characters with just a very short flashback sequence, which would literally be like less than 10 seconds, if even that. Or you would get to hear their one thought for a moment.
Yes.
And I thought that was really interesting when they did that. And I'll bring up another character later. I have it in my notes that I want to mention that might actually change the whole perspective we have of this one character. But I really liked the slave housekeeper because at first she wasn't taken in by Clint Eastwood's character at all. She was like, nah, I don't trust this white man. Then she started kind of being like, he's all right for a white boy, like,
yeah.
But then she even starts like, even he starts threatening that he's going to have sex with her if he feels like, or rape her actually if he feels like it. And I'm like, my God, nobody in this house is safe. Nobody. But I loved what she said. She said one of my favorite lines in the movie. Well, I hope you like sex with a dead black woman because that's the only way you're going to get it. I was like, good for you.
Well, that's the thing, because we find out, of course, that she was raped in the past by her master. And so, yes, it's, so put it this way, she's now, even though she's still a slave, she's got a certain level of power, if you like, within this community. In fact, in many ways, she's not really treated, even though she has to do a lot of the cooking and the cleaning and all this sort of stuff, but she's not really treated as a slave. She's actually treated more as a housekeeper in many ways. Right. 'Cause it's almost a little bit like she's at the stage now where she could actually run away if she wanted to. But she's not, it's that whole idea of slave and master has sort of left this community now, because it's just this group of women trying to survive in this house. And she's actually really just become one of the women. She's not really a slave anymore, although she technically is, but she's not. Yeah. It's
I mean, she has another great part where several of the schoolgirls have to do field work because, who else is going to do it? And one of the girls complains that it's slave work. She uses a politically incorrect term, I don't care to say. But she says, this is slave work. And she goes, well, you better do that slave work because nobody else is here to do it. And then she...
I know.
But then on top of that, I loved it when the girl was saying, well, my hands are getting rough and, I need to practice my harp. And she's like, well, if you don't do that slave work, then you're going to go to a place where you can play the harp all you want.
I know.
I thought that was so funny. But yeah, a lot of movies, it seems, do that, where they'll have the one witty slave woman who's kind of comic relief and kind of, she speaks back to the children and she corrects the children, but she's still technically a slave. And I mean, this character, she could be in the movie or not in the movie, to be honest, but I love this character. I don't feel like she took away from the story, but I don't feel like she really added to the story very much, but I loved this character.
But I think,
was really entertaining.
Yeah,
well acted.
Oh, very well acted. And I think she is crucial to the story because I think the reality of, all these old big plantations and so forth, that used to exist in the Confederate, states, was that, I mean, let's face it, slavery was something legal in the southern states. So at that time,
not just legal, it was a huge part of their culture. Like people didn't know wrong from right. They were just raised up on it. Yeah, totally.
So you could, I think you had to have a slave in a sense in it, and I suppose it's kind of amazing. I mean, to think it's not I suppose. I mean, I come from a culture that never had slavery, but for a lot of countries that did have slavery. When we think about it, I mean, this was the American Civil War was the 1860s. I think that's right. It's not that long ago.
I know. It's baffling to me. Like, I'm finally at that age now where I'm looking at a lot of this, like any of the atrocities of history, not just slavery, but it's just even just Civil War. I was like, wow, that's just amazing to me now. Not amazing in a good way, just baffling. Because I was thinking, imagine if tomorrow all my fucking neighbors took up arms against me and said, well, you don't go to our church, and right now there's a war going on, and all you heathens need to get the fuck out, and then they just blow my head off. I'm just like, I mean, it could be, you could put it to anything, whether it's, racial tension or religion or any other type of politics. That just blows my mind that people were of that mindset and doing that kind of shit in their own country against each other. It's just, it's crazy. But I mean, that's war. But civil wars are the worst because that's your own people turning against each other. And I'm just like, wow, it's crazy.
Well, yes, it's still happening today. I mean,
it's still happening. Yeah,
and it's still happening in modern countries too. I mean, we saw in Yugoslavia, the split up of Yugoslavia with the civil war in Bosnia, it wasn't that long ago. And right now, there's a civil war, based around racial terms, if you like, in the Ukraine. And it's
Isn't that
going
crazy?
on right now, so, and these are modern countries. These are not,
Yes.
These are not what a lot of people still think of civil wars as being something in third world countries, but we forget it's happening in modern Western countries right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this movie does touch on it. It doesn't go like heavily into it, but it is a central theme of the movie, of the whole North-South conflict. And also what I think is interesting about that whole conflict is sometimes it's only just what you say, because there's a scene in the movie where he almost gets caught. He's a Yankee, and he almost gets caught by the South, and all he did was throw on a fucking Southern accent and say he was from Texas, and then he had one person back him up, say, "Oh yeah, that's my cousin," and he was good to go.
Yeah.
Just like, is that really all it boils down to? Like, it doesn't really matter where you're from, you're still human. Like, it just, obviously I don't think this movie was trying to make a huge political statement, to be honest.
No.
But, that's in there, and I'm just like, makes you think.
It does. And because when it deals with these ideas of the hatred between the North and the South, which had developed, and you sort of think about it, well, it was probably only 5 years before they were all friends.
I know, shocking.
And then 5 years later, they want to exterminate the other. It just shows you how easily and how quickly these sorts of hatreds can develop if we allow them to, which is something. Well, let's not go down this path, but
Absolutely.
It's quite amazing. But in saying that, this movie isn't about the Civil War. This movie,
it takes place during that time, but this is not a war movie.
No,
it's not a war movie.
Not at all. This is
It's definitely like a drama. I don't know. Maybe you could even almost say thriller. Almost.
I suppose you'd say thriller. I mean, the story of basically of imprisonment. But in a sense, maybe it does play with the idea of the Civil War, because in a sense, you've got the idea that he is the prisoner of the women. So in a sense, the women are so if you think about it in these terms, the women are the master, the master, and he's the slave. But then after he decides he's going to turn the tables, he becomes the master and they become the slaves. So
but it doesn't stay like that for long.
It doesn't. But so maybe there is a little bit of political stuff in there. I don't know. But it's it's an amazing story, and it keeps you going for the full, 1 hour and 40 minutes, I think, 44 minutes.
Yeah.
Definitely, it definitely keeps you there. It's a good piece of Clint Eastwood's sort of, earlier work. Most definitely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wanted to say one of the characters, Amy, that's the young girl the 12-year-old girl that discovers him in the forest, and she brings him back to the boarding school, and they take care of him. But there's a couple things that happen in this movie. One, I'll try not to spoil, since we haven't spoiled it so far, so maybe we'll keep that spoil free. We'll see just how it evolves. But right from the beginning, they show you a thought in her head when she finds him. First, it scares the shit out of her. Honestly, it made me fucking kind of jump too when they first show Clint Eastwood and he's like wounded in the forest. But the way they kind of zoom in on him, just kind of out of the middle of nowhere, because you think you're looking at a tree, and then all of a sudden you see a pair of eyes, and then you see blood, and then you're not really sure what you're looking at, and you're like, ah! But scares the shit out of her, scared the shit out of me for a second. But then, like, when she realizes, oh shit, it's a wounded soldier, then she realizes, oh shit, it's a wounded enemy soldier. The thought in her head you hear is something along the lines of, I wonder if this is how my daddy died.
Yes.
I wonder if how this is my daddy died. And when I heard that, and she even goes on a little bit for half a second saying, like, bled out in the forest after being wounded by somebody like you. And I was like, oh shit. So right from the beginning, Amy, this 12-year-old child, seems to have a motivation for revenge.
Yes. Although her real revenge will actually come from something else.
Exactly.
Won't
but I realized she
yeah.
already had that vengeful, like, feeling in her. But then she came to, like, get her 12-year-old crush on this man, as, 12-year-olds often do on older men. But then later, towards the end of the movie, like you so expertly said just now, something happens. Amy does something, and it made me actually ask myself the question: is Amy evil? Is this 12-year-old girl actually just evil? Because she's very aware of what she's doing. Okay, the reason I even say this was at first I thought she was justified, but then I was like, wait, before she did this thing that she does, Clint Eastwood's character said, I'm leaving tomorrow. She could have pulled out of the plan right then and there, and she did not.
Yeah, but that's because he's already committed a horrific act on her, which she'll never forgive.
Poor turtle!
Yeah, the turtle. But that
actually is awful. Yeah. I used to have a pet turtles. I love turtles, and I was like, oh, because I didn't remember that part in the movie at all. Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, the turtle.
But I think
you guys to see.
but I think for her, it's a little bit like she has a hatred for Northerners because her father was killed, obviously in the war, by Northerners. But then she realizes that, he's a human being. And maybe there isn't really this north-south thing. We're all human. And she falls in love with him almost as a father replacement, if you like. But then, of course, he will turn on her. And by that time, he reinforces what she originally thought when they first met, that he is the enemy. And so then she will have no qualms in taking out her revenge. And the other thing too is that even when you think maybe he's changed, all of them are there and they're like, doesn't matter. This is self-preservation. We're going to do what we're going to do, even if you have changed. Yeah, so it's very interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, couple more things I want to touch on that I have in my notes just because they're interesting. First off, there's the dream sequence, and when I was first watching this, I was like, wait, whose fucking dream is this? And then you realize whose dream it is. At first, I thought it was Clint Eastwood's dream because
me too. Yeah, me too.
Which I think they do on purpose. And I was like, and at first I was like getting kind of angry because I'm like, okay, this movie has been so good up until now. Why do they have a gratuitous group sex dream sequence? We already know that Clint Eastwood's character is a fucking horn dog asshole. And then I was like, oh, it's the woman's.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, sexual tension.
And of course, and here's another taboo, although it's not a taboo today, it's actually common. Right. It's normal, right? But back then it would have been a taboo, and that of course is lesbianism or bisexuality. Yes. Now, of course, okay, so even though this is all the other taboos we've spoken about, they're still taboos. But of course, well, being bisexual or being gay today is just normal. It's just just life, right? But in 1862 or something or other, no, that would have been a big taboo. And so they're playing with bisexuality. They're playing with something taboo once again. You know,
and also the reference to the religious painting on her wall. Their bodies actually form the
painting. I know
in that painting. I'm like, oh my god. Okay, if you didn't get it before, people, it's spelled out for you now. But sexual tension, a lot of guilt, trying to keep up appearances, be chaste, be proper, but really they just want to fuck their brains out. But they can't during that time. So interesting that that's in there. And I just thought this was funny. Okay, I think this is probably one of the few movies where you get to see Clint Eastwood in a nightgown. Okay, just had to say it.
Right.
Just had to say it. Big, fluffy, pillowy, white nightgown. You get to see Clint Eastwood in one. And and this is again spoiler, but I'm sure you guys have figured out this much from some of the stuff we've said during this review. This is one of the few films where Clint Eastwood dies. I think he only has like 3 films in his entire filmography where he dies, and this is one of them.
It's I don't actually know. It's a bit like people always sort of say, it's like John Wayne. You know, like John Wayne never dies in a movie. Well, he has actually died in a few. So I hadn't actually thought. I mean, what can you think of the others where Clint Eastwood has died?
I know one of them. I don't know the other one off the top of my head. The other one is El Torino. the one that he wrote.
Oh,
directed.
of course. Yes, of course he does. Yeah, of
so
course
if you
he
hadn't
does.
seen El Torino, oops. Yeah, sorry guys, he dies in that one. But
Yeah, he
great
does.
movie, by the way. And I'm not sure about
Fantastic movie.
what the other one is. Not sure what the other one is off the top of my head. He's got quite the extensive filmography. But at the time, this movie did really poorly at the box office because they marketed it as, oh, Clint Eastwood's in this movie. It's packed with action. And then people went and saw it and they're like, what the fuck is this? And he dies? What the fuck?
Yeah.
So, and actually, Clint Eastwood and the director had to fight to keep that ending in because they were like,
really?
Clint Eastwood can't die. And Clint's like, no, this is essential to the story. I have to die in this. But yeah, they had to fight for that ending.
Yeah, and the ending's good.
If they had let him live, that would be a whole other movie. And honestly, you and I probably wouldn't be talking about it now.
No, and it's I won't say what the women say at the very end, but their little speeches to each other, very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, this is a good film.
This movie came on my radar again because it's actually being remade, or it's been remade, and it's releasing in June, and it has an all-star cast. And I just think, honestly, as much as I like this movie, I still think this is such a strange choice for a remake. What do you think about that?
It's, once again, we're going to go down this old path. Stop fucking remaking movies, you know. This movie is great the way it is. It doesn't need to be remade. Right. And the thing that always terrifies me is they're going to fuck it up.
I'm really curious to see this remake, I have to admit, because I'm just curious. Because first off, this movie has so many taboos in it. And like you said, it's like, how are they going to handle those in modern cinema? Because, well, first off, some of this stuff's, no, I take that back. One of those things is not so taboo.
Yes.
Never mind. There's one thing that's not taboo. But I'm curious to see how they're going to remake this. It's still taking place in the Civil War. It's taking place in Virginia, which is very close to the north, but still considered south. And the all-star cast, let me talk about some of the people in this movie. So we've got Nicole Kidman is playing the main person, Elle Fanning, Kirsten Dunst. I'm just like, wow. Okay, Who's taking over Clint Eastwood's role? Yeah, I know. Who's taking over Clint Eastwood's role? This, I don't know how I feel about it. Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell, for me, is one of those actors, I could not stand him for the longest fucking time. Anything I saw him in, for me, is box office poison. I automatically don't want to watch it if he's in it. And then finally I was kind of like, he's not that bad, but there's just something about him. I can't stand him, but I want to see him in this movie. And another fun fact, Clint Eastwood and Colin Farrell, that are both playing John, McBee in this movie, they both have the same birthday. They're both born on May 31st. Yeah, they're both born on May 31st. So it's just weird.
I have to admit, I think he'd actually be pretty good in this role because to some degrees, it's not a million miles away from his real life. Well, at least where he's been in the past with his life. I won't, you know what I mean? I mean, let's face it, Colin Farrell had a certain reputation, right? I'm not being unfair by saying that, am I?
No, not at all. Not at all.
And so, I mean, Colin Farrell had a reputation of being a womanizer. So I think he'd actually be pretty good. I think he'd be pretty believable, actually.
I didn't like him until I saw him in Fright Night for some reason. In the remake of Fright Night, again, another 80s movie that does not need to be remade, but they did remake it, and Colin Farrell was in it, and that was the one that finally, for some reason, made me come around. I'm like, you know what? I like him as a vampire. Now I think he's actually kind of sexy. And I'm like, now I actually kind of like him. But before I could just, anything he was in, I couldn't stand him. I'm like, Colin Farrell's in it, I'm not even going to the theater. But this is the Colin Farrell movie that'll get me back into theater to see him act, because I got to see this remake.
And Nicole Kidman too. That will
like
be interesting. So that will be
She
interesting.
does some interesting movies too. There's actually one movie she did that's kind of obscure, and no, there's no amputation, and but there's a weird one she did where it turns out she's the mother of a daughter who's basically a straight up, like, excited by blood sociopath, and that's another one of those movies that nobody seems to really talk about, and I was just kind of like, wow, this is a weird movie, and why the hell is Nicole Kidman in it? And yeah, I might actually pass that link to you if you want to check it out, because that was just like, oh, yeah, this is a bizarre movie.
I mean, no, she's fantastic. I'm not just being biased here, you know.
No,
she's great.
Yeah, but this movie was a weird choice for her. I was like, oh, this is really odd.
Yeah, well, you can check out one of her really early works, BMX Bandits.
That sounds amazing.
I think she's 17 or something, I think. And,
we might have to review that.
BMS Bandits. Oh, my goodness, yeah. That's, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Oh,
awesome
my goodness.
Stuff. Oh, okay, we're getting long on this one, so I'll wrap it up. I just got a few more, well, I was going to say fun facts, but actually they're not fun facts, but I wanted to throw them out there because it's interesting. So, two of the actresses in this film, The Beguiled, Elizabeth Hartman and Geraldine Page. Elizabeth Hartman plays Martha, or, Miss Marm, and Geraldine Page was Edwina, the one that says, "You lying son of a bitch!" They both died in 1987 within 3 days of each other. Elizabeth Hartman was the one that was, excuse me. Oh, no, I got them confused. Sorry. Elizabeth Hartman's the one that says, "You lying son of a bitch." She committed suicide, and Geraldine Page, Miss Marma, died 3 days later from a heart attack. So I thought that was very odd. That was interesting. Yeah, both died within 3 days of each other in 1987.
Oh, that's sad. That's sad.
Yeah, it's very sad.
Because they were fantastic, fantastic actors. So,
yes.
That's quite sad.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I suppose, yes, we are running so over time.
This is an amazing, this has been an amazing show, though. 2 amazing movies, an amazing guest. But anyways, all right.
Yeah.
Let's rate.
Let's rate. So, okay. So on our Eric Roberts scale,
right.
where are we going to place this one?
Okay. Oh, and I also have to say this: "Hell hath no fury like a child scorned." I also got to throw that out there.
Yes.
Not a woman, but a child. Anyways, all right. So, out of a possible 5 Eric Roberts, I'm going to give this 5 schoolgirls.
5 schoolgirls. Okay. I am. Oh God. Okay. I am going to go down a little bit. I'm going to give it 4 schoolgirls because I think this film has some parts in it where it's a little bit slow. The taboo stuff doesn't actually worry me because I think it's actually essential for the movie, to be truthful.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
So it's essential for the story. It's a little bit like, when people sort of say, when people put nudity in a movie and they sort of say, "Oh, was it needed or wasn't needed?" Sometimes it is essential actually to the story, to have it in. And I think in this case, we're not talking about nudity, but we're talking about taboo subjects. And I think, it is actually very crucial to the story. So I'm actually cool with that. But it's a bit slow in some parts, I've got to admit. But so I'll give it 4. I'll give it 4 out of 5 schoolgirls.
Right on. Awesome. Wow, it was a crazy, awesome show today.
It was, wasn't it?
One of my favorites. I think this is one of my favorites because I have my little playlist of our episodes. Like, one of my favorites is when we review Destroy All Monsters. That one's just really funny. And then we go into the talk about the cryptozoology and...
Oh, I know. Well, the other thing that's a bit different about this one is that quite often we're taking the piss, out of some of these movies. But today is very different because we're talking about movies we actually think, okay, they're both cults. No doubt they're both cult, but they're actually incredibly good, and they were mainstream movies too. These were not B movies. These weren't independent movies. These were mainstream movies which have, become cult. So I think we've been maybe a little bit more serious on this show than we normally are. I think you could sort of say. But it's been great. And talking to Rena, was that fantastic?
Oh, she was so lovely. Oh, she was so fun. Yeah, she was so lovely.
Yeah, that was just so good. That was just so good.
Yeah, that was excellent.
So, so anyway, just so in finishing, there's a couple of things too. Just want to say, we said a couple of episodes ago that Cliff from Only Funny to Us was going to be on the show.
Right.
He had to postpone, but don't worry for you Only Funny to Us fans. Cliff will be on the show in the next week or so. All right. So we've got to, because the problem is we record at the same times. So we're just trying to make all that work. But anyway, but he will be on in the next week or so or something like that.
Cool.
So don't worry, Cliff will be here with us. I think that's about it. Yeah, I think that's
totally.
about it. So so do you want to take us out, Velvet?
Right on. Okay. So go ahead and follow us on our social media at Cult Movie Show on Twitter and Instagram at Cult Movie Show. If you have a short film or if you have an independent film that you'd like for us to review, if you want to come on the show, review some movies with us, talk about your film, go ahead and email us or private message us on Twitter. You can email us cultmovieshow@gmail.com. And also you can follow me on my personal social media at OMG, it's Velvet on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow my co-host Warren. He is Martini Super Dry on Twitter.
Oh, yes. Yes. Super
Although we were
dry.
talking about wine earlier, so see, variety is the spice of life here.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. I have to admit my passion is Scotch. But
right on.
But anyway, that's another subject. Yes. Is that it? I think. Is that it?
I think so. Okay, we'll just say thank you to Alana Evans for providing the music to the end of the show. And also thank you to Only Funny to Us. Check out their podcast, Only Funny to Us. A shout out to our friend Cliff, who's going to be on the show soon. And anything I forgot?
I think that's the lot. Of course, remember to follow Rena Riffel on social media.
Yes.
She gave out, of course, her addresses. And I should have written them down so I could read them out, and I didn't. I'm sorry
I dropped the
about
ball
that.
On that one too. Sorry about that.
But
Actually, she's Rena Riffel on Instagram, so at Rena Riffel, and on Twitter she is Cinema Rena. So you can follow her on Twitter, but she's more active on Instagram. So hit her up there.
But it's a great Twitter handle, I've got to admit. It's pretty clever, actually.
That is,
and so of course, thank you to Rena. All right, I think that's a wrap.
I think that's it. All right, we'll see you guys next week with more movie reviews and shenanigans.
Absolutely, we'll try to find some more crazy stuff for next week. So it'll all be good. All right, thanks, guys, and we'll be back next week.
Whee!